Christ, you can be in the world, but whatever is in the world will not get into you.
"19 nations will compete in the Total Energies CAF African Nations Championship, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania 2024, which will be staged from 2nd to 30th August 2025. Amongst the 4 groups in the tournament A to D, Kenya is pooled in Group A, together with Morocco, Angola, DR Congo and Zambia.
Algeria from the set piece, the header is on target, but it's...
This unique competition featuring the best locally based players from across the continent definitely has something for everyone. Just bring your A game as you let it flow live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
It's Mike, why cohabiting for long will now be deemed as marriage? Why cohabiting will now be deemed as marriage?
Well. That is italeta shida kidogo.
Mike, I'm repeating, why cohabiting for long will now be deemed as angoa?
Why are you mentioning my name?
Have you been cohabiting with your partner for over a decade without formalizing? A decade? No, this one warrants a marriage. How about that, Ray?
But my question,
10 years.
My question, gentlemen, why would you be staying with someone's daughter in your home and they're doing wifely duties and you're not making an honest woman out of them? I, for one, am not a proponent of cohabiting. Never have I been, never will I be.
Yeah. 10 years, we're in 2025, which means if you're cohabiting with someone, then they started cohabiting in 2015.
Yes.
And I can imagine how many kids in between.
Yo.
Good morning.
Actually, there was a directive some years back that if you live with a person for consistently for 6 months.
For 6 months, yes.
You're deemed married.
Yeah. For 6 months.
Yes.
But
I think that is fair. Because what are you doing for 6 months?
For 6 months, look at it this way. Time, the emotional engagement that both of you put together. Look at it that way. Everything that you invest emotionally. 6 months, I think 6 months is fine. 10 years is a long time.
And when there are documents that you fill,
yes,
and they ask your marital status. So do you feel it as married or single?
Or friends.
Exactly.
10 years.
That's food for thought.
Situationships in this neighborhood.
No way. Good morning. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya. This is how we do it every single morning. Today is 11th day of June 2025. Welcome to the show. Now, we all know what happened yesterday. The revelations from the government pathologists, lawyers were there, the civil rights activists were there. This is with regards to the late Albert Ojwang. Now the cat is finally out of the bag and it's all over the front page of local dailies. I mean, front page of the Standard, tortured, strangled. On the front page of the Daily Nation, we have it here again. Police cover-up, that is what I have. Mike, what's there?
Ojwang strangled as Raila demand quick probe.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Ray doesn't have a paper, but that's what's on the front page of the local dailies. We are going to take a look at that on The Viewpoint today. And the viewpoint today is, and the point is, you join the dots. Yes. And the point is, we can also take a look at, finally, we have IBC in place. Mike, good morning.
Good morning to you, Victor. Let's look at what or how Kenya is leveraging its brand for trade and for export trade. And that is a conversation that we'll be having with Floyce Mokabana, who is the CEO of Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency. She will be joining me to talk about that and how Kenya is leveraging exports to enhance its attractiveness as an investment and trade destination. That is a conversation that will be coming to you after the political segment. And also on the women at the forefront, I'll be talking to one lady, that is Lindsay Stradley, who is the founding partner of Sanaje Collaborative, about setting up startups for social impact. That is a conversation that will be coming to you live on Good Morning Kenya. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning to you, gentlemen, Mike and Victor. And we start off on that note. Quite the revelations after an autopsy report where forensic pathologists who conducted a post-mortem examination on the late Albert Ojwang concluded that he died of head injuries inflicted through assault. The findings dismisses suicide has been alluded by the police, and the Law Society of Kenya now wants and must to reveal the identities of those involved and swift judicial action taken against them. As Marie Ambo reports, the late Ojwang's father has made a passionate appeal for justice.
A post-mortem conducted on Albert Ojwang's body by a team of 5 pathologists in the presence of family representatives ruled out suicide as the cause of his death. Government pathologist Bernard Media said the findings point clearly to a violent death caused by external injuries.
There were serious injuries to the head. There were also features of neck compression. There were also multiple soft tissue injuries that were spread all over the body, including the head also, the neck, upper limbs, and the trunk and the lower limbs.
The pathologist further noted that the nature and location of the injuries on the sides and back of Ojwang's head and not the front showed signs of a struggle.
The bleeds that we found on the scalp, on the skin of the head, was partially spread on all aspects, including the face, the sides of the head, and also the back of the head. When we tie up together with other injuries that are well spread in the body, including the upper limbs and the trunk, then this is unlikely to be self-inflicted injury.
LSK President Faith Odhiambo has demanded full transparency in the murder probe.
Want to see all those officers arraigned in court. Want to see our judiciary in action. Let us not leave any stone unturned. And also to the Director of Public Prosecutions, we want to see you also reviewing the proper charges so that we can hold these individuals that have gone rogue to be held accountable.
Meanwhile, grief-stricken Albert Ojwang's father feels betrayed by police for not following the due process in law when he handed over his son to them.
Watu wanaongea kuhusu mambo ya ufisadi hata ni wengi kabisa katika nchi hii yetu. Kwa nini mtoto wangu peke yake asulubiwe kwa ajili ya neno la ufisadi ambayo inahusu nchi nzima, abebe na ni mtoto wangu mmoja wa kipekee? Sasa nimebaki mkono mtupu. Nana atanielekeza katika maisha yaliyobakia.
He made a passionate appeal for justice.
Tafadhali mzee wa nchi, tusaidie, nisaidie kama mwananchi anayetoa ushuru pia. Naangalia haki kuwatendea wanyonge, sababu boma langu hata ilipigwa picha hata kabla kijana wangu kuondoka. Wakaona kwamba huyu ni mfukara, hawezi kujitetea. Kwa hivyo lolote tunaweza kumfanyia mtoto wake ili kwamba iwe suluhu namna hiyo.
Well, yeah, that's my face there. And I think everyone is just thinking the same, because the police service, or rather the security apparatus, should be providing security to every person. But then if we are not safe in the hand of the police, then who do we run to? Still keeping up on this particular issue is that the Senate has summoned Interior and National Administration Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja, Independent Policing and Oversight Authority Chairperson Isaac Hassan, and National Police Service Commission to appear before the Committee of the Whole House Wednesday. That is today, the 11th of June, to explain circumstances that led to the death of blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody. This, as lawmakers call for the immediate resignation and arrest of the Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat over the mysterious death of Ojwang.
After an autopsy ruled out suicide as the primary cause of Albert Ojwang's death, legislators in the bicameral parliament are up in arms, calling for justice for the family.
The DIG need to do this country a favor. He needs to resign. As the first step of showing respect to the family of Albert Ojwang, the DIG needs to resign.
We want Mr. Eliud Lagat to be arrested so that he can write a statement from a police station for it to be clearer to him that he has a responsibility.
Na sisi hatutakubali hata kidogo kwamba ifichwe hichi kifo. Wanaanza kusema sasa kwa sababu yeye ni DIG anafikiria anaweza kudanganya Wakenya wote. Anasema ati mtu alijigonga na ukuta alafu akaanguka chini akakufa. Kwani alikuwa anacheza mpira yeye huko ndani?
If you look at the definition of to be killed and to die, this gentleman was killed, murdered by the police, who are supposed to be the custodians and the safeguards of law and order in this country.
Speaking during separate plenary sittings in the National Assembly and at the Senate on Tuesday, lawmakers termed the killing of Ojwang as an affront to the right to freedom of expression, calling on President to take firm action on the security apparatus.
Kulikuwa na nguvu na uwezo wa Albert kupelekwa kotini, mwalimu Albert kupelekwa kotini na kufungulia mashtaka, si kumuua Albert ndani ya jela. Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Speaker, I call upon the President on this matter. He must speak and speak.
Heads must roll from the Minister of Interior, Inspector General of Police and all his subordinates, including the OCS from Homa Bay, who gave out the link, Mr. Speaker, including Safaricom, who gives out the location of this suspect.
Members of Parliament also raised concerns over what they termed as a concerning trajectory the country is taking.
The reason this young man was killed, he said the police service receives close to 56 billion shillings every year. This is the story. This is the big thing in this house.
And Mr. Speaker, if IPOA is not in a position to, occasionally the government has actually employed the services of external forces and external investigators. For us to have confidence, perhaps the government may need to even consider that.
Senate Speaker Amason Kingi summoned top security chiefs to appear before the Committee of the Whole on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025.
That tomorrow the CS must appear with the following persons: the IG, the chairperson IPOA, the chairperson Police Service Commission,
It is 11th of June, and we are going to be waiting to see if, indeed, the aforementioned persons there, the floor of the House yesterday, are going to make, serious of those particular summons to Senate. We're talking about the IG, as well as representatives of IPOA, to just elaborate and tell Kenyans exactly what happened that led to the death of the blogger Albert Ojwang. Still keeping up on this is that a section of members of parliament sitting in the National Assembly Administration and Security Committee now want Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat to step aside to allow for speedy and transparent investigations into the death of blogger Albert Ojwang. Led by Kisumu County Woman Representative Rosa Boyu, the MPs also demanded answers on who instructed the arrest of Ojwang and his transfer to Nairobi. The lawmakers also want all security officers involved from the point of arrest all the way to the point of his death interdicted to allow for speedy investigations.
It is a mockery of justice to still have the person who had actually lodged the initial complaint on behavior of Albert to still be sitting as part of a team that is investigating the death of Albert. As a mother, and for all the women of this country, it is important that that officer steps aside or resigns to allow meaningful investigation to go on.
Tunajua sasa hivi rais amesema ya kwamba yuko tayari kuongea na vijana, yuko tayari kuleta umoja. Kwa hivyo maofisa wa polisi, musibebe misalaba mikubwa, misalaba ambayo hatuelewi na hatuelewi ilienda vipi ama ilienda vipi. So DCI na zile investigation agencies zote, mutuambie ukweli, what happened.
Jambo la pili ambalo tunataka ni uchunguzi wa haraka na wakina wa mazingira ya kukamatwa kwa kifo cha Ojwang. Kama vile juzi ambavyo tuliona mbunge mwenzetu Mheshimiwa Were alipofariki. Hii uchunguzi wake haikuchukua muda, tayari wa Kenya wakapata ripoti. Hata kifo cha huyu kijana Ojwang pia tunataka maofisa wa mapolisi waweze kuharakisha haraka tuweze kujua kinaga ubaga.
When a young Kenyan talks about a certain office held by an individual, they are talking about it because you are the one holding the office. If you have a thin skin, you can't take that. You exit. So as Kenyans, our expectations are that no one should try to gabble the issue that we are dealing with in our country today.
Well, as I said, it's 11th of June, 2025. We'll be waiting to see if indeed the IG and his counterparts invited at the floor of the Senate this morning in regard to that matter are actually going to show up. Now, President William Ruto says that at least 23.3 million Kenyans have registered for the Universal Healthcare Scheme, as per data from the Social Health Authority, SHA. Speaking in State House Tuesday, the president said the figures are a testimony that Kenyans have embraced the new Universal Healthcare Scheme.
On Tuesday, President William Ruto played host to at least 600 leaders from the African Independent Pentecostal Church of Africa, AIPCA, at State House, Nairobi. It is here where the president commended the uptake of the Social Health Authority, saying the figures were impressive.
Ile ya NHIF ilikuwa na watu 5 million walikuwa nalipa wako kwa hiyo program. Sasa hii kufikia jana watu milioni 23 walikuwa wamejiandikisha.
The president highlighted that 10,884 members contributed 48.9 million shillings in monthly premiums, while 2,946 Kenyans enrolled in the Lipa SHA Pole Pole program on Monday, June 9th, the year 2025. President Ruto further assured the public that healthcare services will continue to improve.
Kazi yangu mwaka huu ni kupatiana tu funguo ya manyumba, tukiendelea na vijana zaidi wanafanya kazi, vijana zaidi wanaongezeka kufanya kazi na tunabadilisha Kenya.
The president also reflected on the government's decisive actions over the past 2 years to stabilize the economy, noting that these efforts are beginning to yield positive results.
It is my responsibility as the leader of this nation kuunganisha watu wote, mandugu, cousins, majirani, maadui, wote.
I think they should have adjusted the sound while making those presentations there in State House. That is entirely my opinion. For for the quality of sound. Now, the Controller of Budget, Dr. Margaret Nyakango, has flagged foreign and domestic travels, pending bills, and low absorption of funds as the main issues that face the national government in the implementation of its budget for the first 9 months of financial years 2024-2025. Now, Nyakango says the travel expenditure amounted to 16.83 billion shillings, comprising of 11.69 billion shillings for domestic travel and 5.1 billion shillings for foreign travel, with the Executive, Foreign Affairs and Parliament leading in the travel chart. Nyakango has further revealed that the National Police Service spent more than 1 billion shillings to cater for the multi-agency security support mission to Haiti.
Control of Budget and the Auditor General, you are our principal partners.
In a 344-page National Government Budget Implementation Review for the first 9 months of the financial year 24-25, the Controller of Budget, Dr. Margaret Nyakango, has now raised her concerns over foreign and domestic travels, pending bills and low absorption of funds as the main hindrance to prudent use of public resources. In the first 9 months of the financial year 2024-2025, travel expenditure amounted to 16.83 billion shillings. This comprised of domestic travel at 11.69 billion shillings and foreign travel at 5.1 billion shillings. The Executive, Foreign Affairs and Parliament were leading the chart. Dr. Nyakango further affirmed that indeed the State Department for Foreign Affairs facilitated 523.8 million shillings for Raila Amolo Odinga campaigns for the position of AUC chairperson, which he lost to Djibouti's Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. This as the National Police Service spent 181.1 million shillings in the September of 2024 to support the mission in Haiti. The figure rose to 1.98 billion shillings in October the same year, and in March this year, the National Police Service wired 229.38 million shillings to officers in Haiti. On education, a non-financial performance analysis revealed that infrastructure and equipment for public primary schools and special needs education services were lagging behind in implementing the free primary education program. The total national government pending bill as of 31st of March 2025 amounted to 511.75 billion shillings compared to 516.27 billion shillings reported as of 30th of June 2024. This comprised of 421.63 billion shillings, 82% for state corporation, and 90.12 billion shillings, 18% for ministries and state department.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Dr. Khalwal.
Well, we'll be keeping tabs on that. Remember, come Thursday, we're expecting John Badi, Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, to be making his maiden presentation of the proposed budget 2025-2026. Now, Broadcasting and Telecommunication Principal Secretary Stephen Isaboke says the government is committed to transforming Kenya Broadcasting Corporation to match the changing technological trends. Speaking during his familiarization tour at Broadcasting House 2 months after taking office, Isaboke revealed that the ministry is currently working on ensuring the national broadcaster remains competitive.
Canvass the bail and bond first.
Jengo Masha, Officer Commanding Station at Kaptakani and Chief Inspectors.
I think
Tuesday, Broadcasting and Telecommunication Principal Secretary Stephen Isaboke paid a courtesy call to Kenya Broadcasting Corporation 2 months after his appointment. The PS outlining the ministry's plan to transform the national broadcaster to take its rightful place in broadcasting spectrum.
The president came in with transformation as his agenda and digital transformation for that matter. And KBC is actually one of the corporations in terms of corporation position for transformation or for restructuring. So that it's actually positioned to take its rightful place in the broadcasting spectrum and in the new digital era. And we're actually glad that KBC is seized to take on the president's vision to realize that whole digital transformation agenda that has actually been set, obviously, by the bottom-up economic transformation agenda.
The PS promising to address challenges facing the broadcaster, which include insufficient funding, recovering the institution's assets, as well as infrastructural improvement.
We've also discussed with the board issues of governance and how the board is actually assisting management to try to steer the business or the corporation into this transformative era where there's so much disruption happening in the broadcasting. What do you then do, especially when you have so much, legacy and also assets that you need to monetize to ensure the corporation survives and actually thrives?
Isaboke said the ministry is currently working on facilitating staff training, improving staff welfare, and having the right placements.
We've agreed on a plan that will actually ensure that those issues, especially staff issues impacting on our people, they're actually addressed. People welfare, people training, and actually having the right people in the right job so that the corporation actually delivers on its mandate is very, very core to what management is doing.
In a move aimed at steering corporations' financial capability, the PS said he will ensure KBC acquires competitive programs and content to remain marketable.
We propose partnerships, first of all, on content production, co-production like BBC, Al Jazeera, and local content for quality and diverse programming. We're looking at technology. If we start collaborating with entities like Google and universities for cloud broadcasting.
The PS has come in as we are starting to effect or implement our 5-year strategic plan, who is very clear about reforms around our finances, reforms around our HR, reforms around our brand, and also, of course, looking forward very much to positioning KBC to meet the very rapidly changing consumer demands from the population that is becoming younger by the day.
Remember, we like getting your feedback. You can get us on X at KBC Channel 1. And one viewer who is watching have just done a screenshot onto one of the dailies in regard to that story about the Controller of Budget audit of the financials with the National Assembly as well as government, that is, detailing how much was spent for what in the fiscal year 2024-2025, and has pointed out to a story that has been highlighted in one of the dailies that reads that state demanded 48 billion shillings for Raila AU bid. These are according to the Controller of Budget. Keep reaching out. Let's sample your views and see and hear what you have to say in regard to what we are putting out there for you. Now we cross over to business, where the cost of credit has reduced to a 2-year low following a decision by the Central Bank of Kenya policymakers to lower the benchmark lending rate. The Monetary Policy Committee has reduced the benchmark lending rate by 25 basis points to 9.75%, which is the lowest since June 2023. Central Bank Governor Dr. Kamau Thuges says the lower lending rate is aimed at stimulating lending by banks to the private sector and supporting economic activity. This is after the average commercial bank's lending rates declined to 15.4% in May of 2025 from 15.7% in April and 17.2% in November of 2024. Dr. Thuges says the central bank is keen on ensuring inflationary expectations remain firmly anchored and the exchange rate is stable. Well, according to the MPC that sat yesterday, we're going to be having a post-MPC review there with members of the Fourth Estate just querying the decisions that the committee took yesterday. One of them is just highlighting the non-performing loans that has recorded an uptick to 17.6%. So with the committee there in their statement issued yesterday recommending that banks need to tighten their credit risk standards there for risky borrowers. We'll be keeping tabs on that. Now, still on business, there is need for countries to reduce cross-border trading tariffs to help lower the cost of animal feeds. Food and Agriculture Organization Assistant Director General Adebe Hele Gabriel is concerned about increased cost of animal feeds in Africa, despite readily available raw materials.
In the Finance Bill 2025, raw materials for making animal feed are among commodities that have been moved from zero-rated to tax-exempt status. This is likely to further push up the retail cost of animal feed as manufacturers incur marginally higher cost on inputs. Food and agriculture organizations say there is need to revise tax and other regulatory policies to reduce the overall cost of animal feed and boost livestock production.
And why animal source of food is becoming more expensive is because the feeds themselves are expensive.
He's also urging countries to harmonize their animal feed tax regimes to boost cross-border and regional animal feed markets.
Different kinds of tariff and non-tariff barriers exist among the different countries. So the solution is for the countries to come together to harmonize their trade policies.
Kenya is among 13 countries that is said to benefit from a 13 billion shillings funding that plans to increase vaccination and strengthen livestock value chain.
Jointly together with World Health Organization and UNICEF, mobilized over $300 million, and FAO as an implementing entity is handling over $90 million.
That effectively takes us to sports, where renovations at the Nyayo National Stadium and Kasarani Stadium will be fully completed by the 25th of this month, and the keys handed over to the Ministry in charge of sports on the same day. This is according to Sports Cabinet Secretary Salim Vuria, who led the National Assembly Committee on Sports on a tour of the stadium, including the Talanta Sports Complex.
Nyayo National Stadium in Kasarani will go down in history as the first stadium in Kenya to host the 2024 African Nations Championship CHAN. The stadium, which have been undergoing a facelift, are now 86% complete. On Tuesday afternoon, the Sports Cabinet Secretary Salim Muvuria led the National Assembly Sports Committee on a tour geared towards assessing the progress of the stadium. Mvuria says all stadia, including the Talanta Sports Complex, will be complete by 25th of this month.
The changing rooms here in Nyayo and Kasarani are also done. The major works that is being handled now are the electrical part. We are fixing a scoreboard on that side and another scoreboard on this side. All the seats have been fitted. And we have agreed with all contractors, both for this field and all the other fields, training grounds in Police Circle, Nyayo and Kasarani, that they will be handing over the key on the 25th of this month.
African Nations Championship CHAN will be co-hosted by Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania from the 2nd to 30th of August this year.
And on behalf of the committee, we are satisfied that what the Doubting Thomas have been saying about Kenya hosting CHAN and AFCON, we want to confirm to them that yes, Kenya is ready and the two tournaments will be held without any hitches.
Kenya will be hosting CHAN for the first time in history in front of home fans and will be seeking to showcase a splendid performance after being pegged in Group A alongside 2 times winners Morocco and the Democratic Republic of Congo. From Mo International Sports Center Kasarani, my name is Frederick Mwoki.
We'll be keenly waiting for that particular date. They said the 25th, we're going to be there for it. Now, Kenya scored 2 goals against Chad in an international friendly played yesterday in Marrakesh there, Morocco, where Sakwa and Osoro scored for Harambee Stars. Further details are available on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. As we bring this to a close, the conversation around the mysterious death of blogger Albert Ojwang continues to reverberate across all media stations as well as the country, with various people giving their suggestions as to what needs to take place. But what we're going to be keenly focusing on is if the Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, as well as the Interior and National Administration Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, as well as the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority Chairperson Isaac Hassan, accompanied by the National Police Service Commission, are going to be appearing before the Committee of the Whole House today. This is following a summons by the Senate to just clear the air in regard to what exactly happened. This comes at a time when a section of members of parliament are calling for the resignation of the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Eliud Lagat. What is going to be transpiring? We'll be keeping tabs on that. I hand you over to Victor for the conversation this morning, which you can be part of. Get us on X at KBC Channel 1. Have a great day ahead.
In a world where news is ever-changing, staying informed is more important than ever.
Join us every week on News Check, your go-to show for the latest in current affairs, breaking news and in-depth analysis.
A warm welcome to KBC News Check.
From politics to global events, we bring you content that matter to you.
We're not just speaking about the governance and how we want to see it, but want to actually participate.
Get your facts, hear from the experts, and really understand what is happening around you.
We need to change our system first.
You have to do the impossible
Yes.
to make sure the message is home.
Stay ahead, stay informed, stay engaged.
Will these people, everybody agree?
Just listen to me.
Let's give him a chance to clear the air.
Catch News Check every Tuesday and Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, only on KBC Channel 1. The men and women in boots. Their core mandate to defend and protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Republic of Kenya. Their bravery knows no limits.
Make a man go through the wall without breaking the wall.
Laziness. It is not in our vocabulary.
But what are their stories, their tales? Military Tales, every Saturday at 9 p.m. with Ben Troy and Joey.
Greetings in the name of the Most High, Jah Rastafari. My good name is Marley Moses, the positive warrior, alongside...
Yes, sir, DJ D-Rage, the baddest, each and every Wednesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 TV.
Tunakuletea the biggest reggae party in 254 in a yard extra niceness of reggae music,
Extra dose of entertainment.
when the thing is nice
We have to do it twice.
Very good. Welcome back to the program. Okay, so today being the 11th day of June 2025 is the Viewpoint, and this is how we do it. Today's topic is the Viewpoint, and the point is, my guests are going to fill the dots. And the point is, we all know what's happening across the country for the last 2-3 days, with the main discussion today being the final revelation by the government chief pathologist who carried the postmortem yesterday on the late Albert Ojwang, who now we all know the cause of death as per the results which were given by the pathologists who were there at the funeral home, the Nairobi funeral home where the postmortem was done. And today I just want to take a look holistically what is happening and how we should get it right, all right? That is one of them. Number two, we also take a look at, finally we have the IBC in place, okay? We have the IBC in place, the president appointed the team. Finally, we have a full house, and so we are looking at what's going to be happening in the future. We have got so many constituencies unrepresented for far too long. That is one of them. I have got Professor Fred Gola, who is an economist and a convener of the J25 movement. Professor Gola was there at the mortuary yesterday. He followed this proceeding, whatever happened at that place, he was there. He actually addressed the media. Prof, good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
It must have been a very busy 2-3 days for you, right?
Absolutely, especially from the fact that I wish I didn't know any story about Ojwang, because that's what makes it painful.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to know how this shocks people, the normality of the day, you begin the day when things are just normal. Maybe you know we are going to have lunch, then we shall take a walk. Then something just happens that changes the whole thing.
Yeah.
Imagine Ojwang was picked having lunch with his wife. The father was there, and the father handed him over very lawfully, expecting everything else that will work normal. In fact, the old man traveled coming to check here. But for me, let me just say the following, that without giving the long story, that Ojwang was arrested lawfully. Maybe Wakili is here, but Ojwang was arrested lawfully because the DCIs came from Nairobi, went to the nearby police station called Mawegu, took the OCS and went with the OCS to arrest him using a motorcycle. So that was lawful. He was handed over. The family was law-abiding. In spite of everything else that's happening, they handed over their son, knowing they'll see him again. So then what started becoming unlawful is when he arrived at the Mawegu police station, because that's when there's no OB checked in. And why do you take him away from Mawegu, bring him to Nairobi? So everything went wrong after that. But I see what was the contention when we were at the mortuary. First of all, the doctors, I think they were actually under a lot of pressure, didn't want to do the postmortem on time, and they were saying to say it's not urgent. Let me tell Kenyans that a postmortem is something very urgent, especially to the family of the deceased. It's always urgent. Let someone tell you that we still have time. The faster, the better. So they came with very fake reasons, and I told them they were invalid reasons. The first thing, talk about natural light, that we need natural light to do a postmortem. No, you don't need it. Natural light, they are saying, is better than artificial light. And anybody who has some knowledge in lighting knows that artificial light, you can adjust it to the way you want. But natural light is the way God has given it. When the sun is less intensive, you cannot adjust the intensity of the sunlight. You can't adjust the color of the sunlight. But artificial light, you can actually make it see what you want.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned...
Okay. Let me just introduce the rest.
Okay.
We'll get into it.
Okay, sure.
You before it started the show, you said that Sossion is going to be...
the anchor.
Okay. Elijah Ireri is here. Elijah Jagi Ireri, who is a lawyer and a governance expert. Wakili, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Yes, thank you.
Karibu sana. And finally, Wilson Sossion, who is a former nominated member of parliament and NAT Secretary General. You'll also give us a bit of your insight on the education in as far as the finance bill is concerned. Education is going to suffer immensely, and even the Teacher Service Commission and everything that we need to understand. But let's come back. You were saying something.
Yeah.
Just 1 minute to that.
So I'm saying that what was very unfortunate was that after the incidents took place,
yes.
First of all, misreporting, misinformation, and then secondly, trying to manage the family not to really see the truth. But I'm happy that I want to thank the doctors who performed the autopsy. The results they got could not be better than that, because what we suspected was there. And I could say that prima facie, the lawyer is here. On the face value, if you looked at Ojwang, you could see he was killed. Those, even when they were now doing all the surgeries and the cutting of the body, they were just confirming and everything confirmed. And it's amazing that 5 doctors, experts, forensic pathologists, concurred and consulted and concurred that this is a death that is externally put. And I want to tell Kenyans that don't buy these stories that always come. Immediately you are killed, people say you self-murdered, self-abducted. Yeah. They always accuse you. When Uko died, he committed suicide. You saw Father Kaiser, he killed himself. this is a narrative we've seen since independence, and don't buy it. So what I leave Kenyans by saying, as an expert in investigations, we believe in A, B, C.
Yeah.
A, assume nothing. So don't assume anything. B, believe nothing. When they tell you you kill yourself, hit yourself in the wall, don't believe it until you get the evidence. Lastly, check everything. Ata chini ya kitanda, look everywhere until you have every information you have. And the doctors did that, and that's why it is concurred that he was assaulted.
Now that you have the Star newspaper, what's on the front page of the Star newspaper? Let's do it together. On the front page, you can just raise it up.
Yeah,
on the front page of the Star newspaper, what's on the front page? Read it for us.
They're saying Ojwang strangled as Raila and MPs demand quick probe.
Okay. Wakili, what do you make of that headline?
First, I'll send my heartfelt condolences to the family of Ojwang. It didn't a sad time in our country that somebody was extremely healthy, a young man who was extremely healthy, having lunch at his home. A few hours later, he's normal and in the hands of the police. I really am distraught that the protectors of Kenyans, because that's their right to protect the life of the citizens, they're the ones who are being accused of enabling such atrocities on innocent Kenyans. It's a bit unfortunate. Now, this is a straightforward case of, in my view, murder, and the people who have done it should be brought to book. I don't think there's anything political about it, but what we need to call is for speedy investigation. I think by now people should have been arrested. Yes.
We are going to take a look at the law of defamation.
Yes.
All right, the law of defamation.
Yes.
Where it's also tied to the Cybercrime Act, the Penal Code, and basically, if I were to defame you, Mwalimu Sosion, the procedure. I mean, we also what happened again, even over the weekend. Politicians insult each other in broad daylight, and nothing happens. But Sosion, you are here. You can also speak something to this. I mean, good morning.
You know, the entire country is disturbed. There are things we cannot do, but we cannot cross the red line and take away human life. Let us abuse ourselves politically. Let us do anything. Let the police arrest citizens, but to take out somebody's life is a no. That is not permissible. It is not admissible. It is inconceivable. It is disturbing. It is not what we stand for. So I think let's not mix up issues here about what was a complaint, who was complaining. Let us deal with who took out the life of this young man, because that was not necessary and called for. And many of us have been arraigned in the police stations for different reasons, to record statements. I've recorded, I don't know, 3 or 4 times at the DCI. I've been at the Central Police Station and the rest. But I think to assault a suspect or a citizen to the point of death is a serious crime, particularly when it is done by the law enforcers. A citizen who was not a threat to the police themselves, a citizen who did not refuse arrest, a citizen who cooperated, and then you tell us in a few hours somebody is dead. I think there is something wrong with our police system. And I want to believe the litany of sabotage cases that we've witnessed over time is something that must be looked into. When Mutiambai walked out of Bomas and faked to be sick and faded out of the police service, that should have raised a lot of questions about before Kenyans, because a whole Inspector General of Police cannot preside over something that was near genocide for the country. I saw the police at Bomas freezing and failing to take action. And to me, that was a near recipe of throwing the country into anarchy. I watched in Parliament as we didn't see any single uniformed police officer present to protect Parliament. And we saw Koome walk out of the Vigilance House also unceremoniously. And we have seen killings by the police in different parts of the country in circumstances that could be avoided. Because you don't need to shoot the citizen. You don't need to kill. This one, I think, is the one that broke the camel's back. And we don't need to go around and create stories of conversation of who did what and how. It was done by a police officer within the presence of the police, whether inside the police car, whether at the central police station.
The fact remains that it was done
by a police officer. And we've seen, in terms of proper investigation and procedures, all the officers who are on duty at central police station who have been interdicted. And an interdiction is the right step to allow for investigation. It indeed is the right step to allow for investigation. But Kenyans are not going to be fed on only interdiction. By now, we should have particularly those who handle the suspect to be to be arraigned in court.
Okay, allow me to jump into this, Mwesh. This probably must be an order from somewhere. The same way the order was given to track down the suspect, arrest, and the first point of handing over was at Mawego police station, which was a right one.
Let's not mix up issues.
Not mixing.
Victor,
just a point of clarification.
On the point of the issue
allow me
orders.
to ask this as well. Allow me to ask this as well. The point of clarification: who gave the orders?
The orders of arresting are different from murder.
Did they act on someone's order for that person to be assaulted?
I don't think there is a sane police officer who can be ordered to murder in the country. Any police officer who is trained and is on duty is supposed to act within the law as a person and take personal responsibility.
So at what point did they, even if they did not get the orders from somewhere, at what point did they... We are just trying to...
Let me clarify so that we don't mix issues.
We are also just trying to make sense...
Let me clarify so that we don't mix issues.
We are just trying to make sense of, just thinking out loudly. At what point did even the people who tortured him to death think of doing it?
Now, let me...
Even the idea itself.
I'm not a forensic expert myself, neither am I an investigator, but at least let us separate issues. Let us separate the complaint and the complainant. Let us separate also the order to arrest. If you are ordered to be arrested and you are picked from CIA, you should be safe at least.
Actually, we are not even talking about the arrest, the process of being arrested.
Now,
the father abided by the law, handed in over to the
number one.
Yes.
For me, number one, why assault a suspect who is under your custody?
Now that's what we're talking about.
Why kill?
The idea.
And I think that is where all our minds should concentrate and focus on primarily.
Okay.
Article 51. One that is put aside. Number two, the nature of the complaint. Was it war taking a suspect all the way from wherever in the country? Because that is a civil matter. A civil matter, you don't need to bring a person all the way to the DCI, and that was a matter that could have been dealt differently. And I think that is where the police went overboard and used extra police force on a matter that could have been dealt with differently. Because the young man could have been taken to record a statement at the nearest police station.
At Nowego police station where he was first
a charge sheet prepared.
Yes.
Yes, and is produced in any court. He never needed to be brought all the way to Nairobi unless there are special reasons for that. But of course, okay, all the same, he was brought to Nairobi. But why not keep him safe?
Allow for the sake of
so that for me, the focus is why kill?
Why kill?
Let us not mix up issues.
51 of the Constitution, 51 of the Constitution provides for the right of a person detained by the police. One, to be informed in his language, the reason why he's being arrested, and then to be produced, to have access to his attorney or somebody who can help him with the circumstances, and then to be produced to court within a reasonable time. But in this case, they have specified within 24 hours. That's what should have followed. But within that period, doesn't root his dignity, his privacy, his right to life. And that's where the problem is. And they are aware of this. So once you arrest him, that's the procedure. Still has his dignity, his right, and then you produce him to court. Why go then the extra mile? The era of extracting confessions through force, harassing suspects, that's gone. We have a new constitution. And they know that. They need to move from that. And it's really unfortunate that we have a very robust legal framework in our constitution, and some elements, I would say some elements in the police force, don't see it fit to follow the law.
Okay.
And that's where action needs to be concentrated
But
on.
then, Wakili, I know you've correctly put it, but are we burying ourselves or our heads in the sand that the Constitution is there and the police officers are all trained and they know these rights?
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
But why ignore them?
I think there's a sense of impunity which is crippling back in the country, disregard of the law, the Constitution, and the rest. And I think that's where now maybe we go to the political will. Is there a political will to enforce the law? And that's where we are coming in. And that's where maybe we are coming in. Where is there impunity crippling in? Because why even now? And why even now, and I've even can bring in the issue of the late Charles Well, who was gunned down within 24 hours. So many people had been arrested. They moved very swiftly and arrested. But here, the officers were in the car, even if it's one or two, they are less than 10 with the suspects. The person was in lawful custody. He was taken to Central Police. So where do you want to look for? You're not looking for somebody in Kepera, Madare, or with a motorbike, wherever, like in Were's case. Yeah.
It's again, you guide us here.
Yes.
This was, because we've not seen the tweet itself.
Yes.
Okay, the complainant, we've not seen the nature of the complaint.
Yes.
But even if it was done online,
yes,
we can assume it's happened somewhere in the air.
Yes.
This person ought to have been produced to the nearest police station.
No, right? I think in terms of the arranged offense, the tweet, the cybercrime, the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act of 2018, Section 22, when your rights have been infringed that way, you're just supposed to make a complaint to the nearest office, even if it's the DCI office, and then they call the suspects, interrogate him, and charge him in court if it's necessary. And the fine is quite hefty. Actually, it's almost 5 million. 5 million for that, if it's proved. And it's a simple process. It's not something you need even to detain somebody. Just need the tweet and investigate the gadget. Yes.
I want to come back here. Prof.
Yes.
The kind of process that happened, we've all seen and heard, even from the narration from the parent and all that, the way it was handed over to the police officers. They came, they introduced themselves, procedurally, the way it's supposed to be done.
Yes.
The gentleman left his food there.
Yes.
The wife and the mother and the child. And now here that comes. So the question is there going to be some sort of trust between the civilian or mwananchi and the police officer? On a simple case of defamation, maybe ni askari, tumekuchukua, this is the case, if this is the case, so what if you are caught, robbery with violence? The extreme.
So let me tell you the following, that I disagree in very fundamental way with my brother Sosion by saying, let us separate the issues. You can't, because investigation cannot be done by saying that is there, that is there. The suspects starts from the complainant. Because if that complaint was not raised, that guy was not going to be arrested. And I want to tell my brother that I have a lot of information that you can't separate issues by saying this is that one, separate this one from this one. There is something called, Wakili, command responsibility.
Yes.
Who gave the command?
Yeah.
Victor, have we had people being charged with genocide? Are they the actual people who took the gun and shot the women and children?
No.
So we can't sit here to listen to things which we can't take. This is why the Gen Z went to the street and said, we don't want this crap of managing people. These people can manage you like this guy, the gentleman, Ojwang's father was being managed. Someone wants to kill your son and comes and says, I've been sent by my boss. Who is your boss? That's what they told the old man. So let me tell this clearly. False information publication, actually, it's not supposed to apply to social media. Social media, why are we calling mainstream media and social media? That's where people are socializing. And in fact, there's not been any single prosecution on these things we are talking about. And let's go to fundamental question here. The problem we are talking about, because I'm not here to discuss about symptoms of issues. The main problem we have in Kenya is that economy is not performing, Victor. Let's not go to side issues. When you can't perform, you bring a security risk, even as a husband. If children can't get their food, your wife can't be satisfied in any way she wants to. She will confront you. And if you can't perform, you start banging tables and beating them. So any man or any woman or any leader, whatever they are, when they can't perform, they become dangerous. Just like a dog at home. When a dog cannot fight with a thief, the dog turns back and bites the owner. So the truth of the matter is that the president overpromised Kenyans. After overpromising Kenyans, he has delivered nothing. And then what's happening? People are now pointing out and saying it, then they are threat. Social media, you're being arrested. The government of Kenya is so backward in their thinking, and the young people are so intelligent. Really? No, sorry to be, I'm giving facts here. When you cannot think at the level of the young people, they can expose in 1 minute. For example, as we stand here, we have evidence as our young people that Langat and Ojwang, their phone was in the same location at the same time, isn't it? So what I'm trying to say is, using technology, because we have AI, we have tools that can be able to address this matter. So I'm talking about...
is signaling me that his cup is empty.
So, yes, fundamentally what I'm trying to say...
Just a minute. So is your cup full or you need some tea?
It's completely empty.
Okay, then we fill his cup?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that off air, which means we take a break.
Ashamed of yourself. Huni mtoto wako hapa and she needs his help. Na kazi yako ni kurushia watu midomo without doing anything.
What you want, Pete?
See you and to know how you're doing.
Don't think that I am a moron or an imbecile. In short, I'm not schizophrenic.
Sasa unaongea vitu gani? Hata sielewi unasema nini.
Utasimama hapo mpaka saa ngapi?
Jen, kindly, I would like to serve breakfast. Hii kitu yangu imejaa mambo mengi sana. Nataka unipe nafasi nitulie. Sawa?
Kenya's future is taking shape. Introducing the 2025-2026 National Budget. A budget built on priorities and focused on what matters most. Empowering agriculture for food security and prosperity. Supercharging digital infrastructure for innovation and opportunity. Building affordable homes, creating jobs and transforming lives. And ensuring quality healthcare for all. So, how much will it all cost? Well, a proposed budget of 4.2 trillion is on the table. Get the full picture, understand the numbers, and see the impact. The 2025-2026 budget on KBC Channel 1.
They say the earth without art would just be get it? We circumnavigate the globe and traverse the local scene to bring you art and culture at their very best. From fine art, culinary art, performing arts, and even cultural events, you name it, and we have got you covered. My name is Kevin Kasioki, and I will be serving you this and much, much more each and every Friday at 8 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1.
Okay, so let's, on the front page, very quickly, on the front page of the Daily Nation, police cover-up, that is what is here. We've taken a look at the front page of the Star newspaper, police cover-up, that is what is there. It's more or less the same thing. And it says that authorities had attempted to blame Albert Ojwang for injuries that caused his death in their custody. But while his tormentors have succeeded in silencing the vocal teacher forever, they could not hide the truth about the cause of his sudden death. Brutal torture, with a post-mortem examination finding that he was murdered. His killers must now be brought to book. I think that's what the three gentlemen are saying here. Very quickly on the front page of the Standard newspaper, again, tortured, strangled. That is what's on the front page of the Standard newspaper. And if you can see the layout of the page, it's in dark. We can all relate, all right? With the gentleman on the front page, perhaps this is not what Albert envisaged in his entire life, to appear on a front page of a newspaper. But that is life. And you can take a look at that and on the front page. But let's come back to the real issues here. We are talking about the issue to do with the trust between the civilian and the law enforcement officer. We are a new dispensation of the Constitution where the police service was changed from the police force to a police service. And we all know that even in their curriculum, we've had discussions here with police officers and instructors and all that. They say the curriculum and the syllabus in the police training colleges changed to a police service because we are in an advanced society right now. But why is it that much as the society is moving and evolving with the new constitution, it is so hard for the police institution to move with Wanjiku and abide by the law? William.
Yeah, I think that's a critical question, and all these litany of events that we have watched, away from this one over Ojwang, is a relapse of the police service back to the police force. That is brutal, and it's.
Did it even ever change?
And
did it ever change?
Well, there are a lot of structural changes, the establishment of the Police Service Commission, IPOA, and other things. So, definitely, there have been policy, legal, and structural changes. But I think the biggest problem with the police service is the leadership. The leadership of the police service must change. It must change. And set the tone and set the tone for the Senate. You know, when the president gave it the accounting powers, that should have been the beginning point of them being very professional and transiting to be a full police service. When you look at some of these actions, either they are very deliberate to sabotage, because it should not happen even in the first place in the current dispensation. The claim that Kenyans have put, because the police service is supposed to aid the public in ensuring that there is law and order in the society. So the engagement, the social engagement, social bond, the chemistry between the people and the police should be one of the best in the current dispensation. It cannot be that in 2025, it is like we are back again to the dark times where the police service has got a negative image that indicates them very, very, very badly. And to me, the buck stops at the leadership of the police service, because all institutions are supposed to sanitize themselves, repackage themselves. You can't expect an outsider. You won't even expect the president. You won't expect anyone else to come and package you. There is a police, there is a curriculum in place. And like when you talked of, oh, there might have been some orders. I don't think anybody can order a police officer to engage in lawlessness, because at the end of the day, you take personal responsibility. So this is quite disturbing. And you remember, we were talking about bodies that were discovered in River Yala. And you see, we have a police service, but citizens are losing life and cannot be accounted. It is a dirty thing. So I think from Ojwang, let Ojwang be the last Kenyan to suffer the brutality of the police. No Kenyan, again, for whatever reasons, should lose life and should suffer because of police brutality. And we must get down to turn around and reform the police force.
That has been done. That has been done several times, Mwalimu. That has been done.
Not done, said.
But you don't give up. It must be done. It is a must-do thing. And if it is a must-do thing, we do it now, and very deliberately, so that then we redeem the country. You know, what is our image globally? When you arrest a suspect, not on a criminal offense, not on a capital offense, but a simple civil matter, that you can even summon a person to appear in person.
Yes, Wakili, guide us here. You can also bring your point on that. But the question, yes.
There have been serious structural and organizational reforms within the police force. And I accept that we see that even in the stations. But our system is such a way that there's some elements, for example, of the political class, and by the extension, their cronies in the other sectors, who are untouchable, who are above the law. And that's actually the problem we have. They don't seem to follow the law. They operate like us and the law. And there's nothing which can be done to them. And I think that's the main challenge. For ordinary citizens, you and me and anybody else, you have an issue with the police, they investigate properly, they take you to court, and the matter ends there. Then you are judged by the court. But when it comes to the political class impunity, which I have mentioned, they don't operate alone. They have their tentacles in the other arms of organs of the state. And I think that's even one of the issues you had when they were recruiting the IBC, that people are bringing their cronies so that they can do their biddings. That mind shift is very difficult to erase, but it has to start from the top. The tone has to come from the top for there to be sanity in institutions.
Yes.
Because that's what spoils everything. Right now, people are expecting a big head in the police department to have been fired, but nothing has happened.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, a big head in the police service, so to speak.
Yes.
The person who is being here, who is mentioned and who is the complainant, which was also put out there, but the police IG is Deputy Inspector General, that is Eliud Lagat, made a complaint against the teacher cum blogger.
Yes.
Okay? So basically that is what's there.
It should step aside.
But the question is this misuse of police powers?
Absolutely.
Just because Wanjiku does not have power to protect himself or herself.
Yes.
To what extent does the police have to use these powers? All right?
I think I'm saying if you operate outside the law, that's impunity. You know that statement that do. You see, you can complain here or do whatever you want, but as we are not shielded by the law, and that's actually the problem. The law is there, the framework is good. That's what I'm saying. But the enforcement bit, when it comes to some elements of the political class and their extension, their surrogates.
What is out there is, the word is that when the police officers went to pick him up, they said that alitusi mkubwa wetu.
Which is normal.
So the word is mkubwa, was insulted, or there was some false complaint, whatever it is. But, Prof, I'll come back to that question. So, the misuse of police powers and Wanjiku becoming selfless or helpless in as far as to defend himself, you can imagine the kind of animosity between the two parties.
You know, Victor, one of the greatest philosophers called Socrates says that the might is right. And that simply means that before we have the right person in State House, nobody has a right. And it's like that. So I've told you, the person who has been violated is one man in State House. Because, you see, since Ruto became president, tell me how many people have been forced out of office because they made a decision trying to protect something. Look at the police IG. How many have changed? Look at people who have left different positions just because it's become untenable. So I've told you, I'm happy when my brother here says that the buck stops with the police. Let me tell you the following. These policemen are our neighbors. They're our friends. We meet them. Some of them are our relatives. And they tell you what's happening. So it's not something we don't know. They'll tell you, even they've arrested me, I've slept in Central 8 times. And they tell you, Professor, tunajua umekuja hapa lakini hauna shida. So you just stay here until our bosses tell us to release you. And no, there's no charge sheet. I've never been charged. 8 times I've been in Central. Central is a walking distance from here. I don't know, after this I'll be there also. So what I'm trying to say here is that, let me tell you why this is not changing. Go to the budget. Mbadi argues that he has increased the security budget by 18%. The budget now is around 257 billion shillings on security. That budget is not fully disclosed. So there's what they call budgeted abductions. Because there's no way this year you can leave Nairobi, go to Homa Bay on air. And let me tell you what, have you ever been in trouble and you call the police and tell them, I've been invaded, then they tell you, send us fuel. If fuel just in Kawangware cannot be available from Kawangware police station to your home, how did they get the fuel from Nairobi to Homa Bay and back? So there must be somebody up there who has access to huge resources. A normal policeman from Central have no powers to order a car, picking 3 people to Homa Bay, having power to command a police station in Homa Bay. There's what called hierarchy of command in police, isn't it? Yes. OCPD cannot command directly OCS. OCPD can command. Inspector General has no powers to command directly an OCS to ensure that hierarchy. These are discipline. I tell you, let us. There's a risk which exists. The country needs to all of this country. Ojwang to happen again, the soul of this country. Like we're talking about black. You see, it's not just a sign of Ojwang. This is a dark nation. Yes. The nation has gone dark. The soul of the country has gone dark. And I don't like when someone comes here to talk about it from political perspective, trying to defend a position. Which positions can you defend when somebody has lost his life? And I can tell you, put your money where your mouth is. When you put money on security, this government is going into an election, isn't it? I've told you that anybody who has a social media following over 70,000, if you're a young man, wherever you are, you know you are at risk because you have been earmarked. There's a list of people who have been put together. This is information I'm giving you in strict confidence. I don't care what they do to me after this, but I'm trying to tell you, there is a list of people who will be targeted. So if you have followership of 70,000 and above in any social media handle, whatever you say is being monitored. In fact, once you hit that number, your social media handles are like now. Ojwang's Twitter handle has disappeared. Facebook has gone. All the social media for Ojwang and even Kevin is gone. Who is taking them? Whom do they belong to? These people have violated every single, even the right to your own social media.
Okay.
So if you go around and being told, oh, you know, so what I'm trying to tell my brother here is that the problem is more fundamental, and the issue even goes to the budget, and it goes very clearly that we need now to, we have to ask the state, face your main opponent, sort education, sort healthcare, sort cost of living, sort national security, sort rule of law. If you tell me rule of law, IBC case was passed that you should not be able to take oath of office and they can't be gazetted. Then they are gazetted, these people, against in contempt of court. So what do? We have an unstoppable regime that cannot listen to any conscience of a nation. So this institutional failure is the reason why Ojwang has died. If the institutions were working, and Parliament, if they are serious, let them go and even impeach the person who has given this instruction for Ojwang to die.
I'll come back to that. So Sion, does it now, the case of Ojwang, as at least must test as a teacher, right? Is my chemistry right? Litmus paper, right? And there's a litmus
test. Yes.
So you know, he's a teacher here.
Yeah.
So I don't want to fail that paper.
You can lose. The teacher is here. Yes.
So is it going to be a litmus test for what has been happening between about the police brutality? That this one finally is out in broad daylight, and the world and the nation has seen.
You know, Victor, trying to collect every other thing that individually some of us might be disenchanted about, like political feelings, I don't think it's right when we are dealing with a matter of this magnitude. And this one indicates the credibility of the entire police service. It has not happened in secrecy. And police killings has not been happening undercover in the country. It is open, it is known. We've seen the killings all over the country over time. And that brings a lot of questions, because responsibilities is both ways. Even in circumstances where police are compelled to shoot, to kill, what really happens in those particular situations? Those are things, those are questions that must come to fore, because all of us as citizens, we have a responsibility in promoting law and order. But for this one of Ojwang is a special one, because it is evidence that he was tortured to death by legitimate police officers who were handling him. And these police officers are properly trained, and they know they're not supposed to use any lethal force against such a convict, which to me, that is an outright crime by an individual. And before we discuss even reforms and remedying other issues, we deal with the criminal within the police service who engaged in that particular crime and punish that individual as a criminal, and we deal with it as such exclusively. We don't need to import our other feelings of how the economy is performing and whatnot. That is engaging in a mischievous fishing expedition that is going to mar an administrative action that is urgent and that which is necessary. The country will rest. And let me say, the country will rest, and all of us will rest when whoever caused the death of this particular young man is brought to justice.
Thank you. I want us to leave that matter to that, and just hope that due process is going to be followed, and clearly the people who are involved will be arrested. Gentlemen, I have a few minutes to go, but let's talk about what's happening tomorrow. The new budget is being read tomorrow. A quick one. There are losers and gainers from what we've seen. The education sector is going to lose. Wakili, I want us to do this within 2 minutes.
That correction.
Sorry?
It's good to make that correction so that it is not canvassed wrongly.
Thank you. All right. Guide us.
The debate in allocation has been varying, and of course the issue about financing of national examinations and environment of free education money to finance them. That was reallocation within the provision of the envelope that was given to the Education Committee, which they did it. It's a provision, it's a process. But I think that clarification has been made by John Badi, the CS, that no vote head is going to be affected in the education sector. The capitation is not going to be affected, and if anything, there are additional resources to the Teacher Service Commission to hire an additional 24,000 teachers. That will bring the number to 100,000 that has been hired by this administration within a period of 2 years. Which, of course, no government in the world
you're privy to this.
Can hire. Yes, I'm privy.
You're privy to this.
I'm privy to this. And then very lastly, in the education sector, there will be additional 6 billion shillings from 35 to 41 billion to higher education loans board. And remember, when this administration took over, the allocation to help was 13 billion. But it has gone up, leaped to 35 billion, and in this financial year, it will leap to 41 billion. Those are facts. So education, contrary to what is being alluded by those who are not properly informed,
there is no loss.
Is no loss. If anything, there are additional resources.
Allow me to bring Wakili in on this one. Wakili, tomorrow is a big day.
Yes.
1 year down the line, we all know what happened last year.
Yes.
And what are you trying to foresee?
Right now, people have been subdued to not express their rights. I think it's a bit unfortunate. The Gen Z killings and the rest which happened last year. We may not see a lot of widespread demonstrations on that. But I think the real failure here is the parliament, because the budgets bill proposals, they're supposed to be discussed and evaluated objectively in parliament. Now, they'll be rendered, sure enough they'll be passed. So what's the role of parliament? That's what has failed, because they're supposed to explain and separate in detail those proposals. But we have seen a situation where they just pass them en masse. They don't look at them. They can even reallocate, and that's actually the challenge. The parliament has failed the people of Kenya, because it's the oversight function. Once they pass it, then it will become law. Last year, they were told not to pass it because they are under a lot of issues which were affecting Kenyans. They still went ahead and passed until the last minute the president rejected it. So why is Parliament rubber stamping everything which is brought to the House? What's their function? What's their function? And I think that's the tragedy with the whole thing. In terms of reallocation, I think Parliament's input would be very important, because for many parents now, and disagree with Sosion here, that capitation has not been reduced. Even now, some schools, I know some schools in my village, they were given per student 100 shillings. So before they used to get almost 9,000. So what is that? You saw a school in Normanby getting 97 shillings. So it has not been changed. What has changed on top, but on the ground they have changed.
Change in the next budget.
Yes.
Prof is an economist, and Prof,
yes,
are you able to do this within 1.5 minutes?
Yeah.
Summarize for us.
First of all, there's an African saying which says that until the lion knows how to write, every story will be told from the perspective of the hunter. what that means is that when you hear these winners and losers, that's not the story. Because if you hear agriculture is losing, is going to education, that's not the way you should look at it. Economically, you should look at what's called household expenditure or household taxes versus businesses and the state.
Yeah.
Because when you see that you overtax household, or if you don't give household a relief, it affects businesses. When you tax businesses, it affects household incomes. So there's a correlation between there. So what we are seeing here is that the expenditure on recurrent expenditure is 3.11 trillion. Development has gone to 640 billion. Last year, at around 700 and something billion, meaning...
This had dropped.
Yes, so we are having a broad-based government. We have two heads of state. Sorry, no, we have two deputy presidents. I'm just giving you this analogical.
Two heads of, no, we only have one head.
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that there's a broad-based government because there's ODM government and there's UDA government, and they're a broad-based government, many advisors, so the state is consuming a lot in terms of recurrent expenditure and reducing on development. Because look here, when you tax household to the point they have no disposable income, they have no money to buy business products. And if you tax business very high, they increase the taxes onto the finished goods, so then the household have no money to spend. So for me, the winners and losers here is that the households and businesses are the losers, and the state are the gainers because they have all money to themselves and taken money from
What is the projection, the next financial year?
In terms of growth?
Yes.
They are talking about 5.2%.
Thank you.
And the problem is the budget has grown by 18%, meaning the cost of running Kenya has grown by 18%, but the revenue is 4.5%, meaning that we are running this country in negative return on investment.
What is the projection next financial year?
I can't project, but of course, you know, our expenditure keeps going up, and there has been a strategic intervention so that not in the near future, we should be able to raise from our domestic taxes at least 5 trillion, so that then we can finance our budget fully, and therefore the expenditure in terms of budget will keep growing.
Thank you.
As our GDP grows. Our GDP is growing. We are an active economy. And so the revenue collection will also grow, and 4.2 trillion is the highest budget ever spent by this country.
Thank you.
And I'm sure next year it will not remain at 4.2. It will keep going up. There are a lot of activities of investment in the State Department, and they're mandatory. It will be done.
It will be lower. We need to take charges.
It will be lower.
In your work.
No, I have this. It will be lower than this year.
Yeah.
All indicators are we are on a downward trend, and there are no measures which have been, in my view, have been proposed to revamp the economy to make it robust, to start growing. There is no indication at all, even from the budget. Yeah, there's nothing. They're just borrowing more.
Allow me to handle this.
I think some optimism must be painted.
We'll do this next week because we need to do post-budget analysis, the losers, the gainers, the projections, even moving forward. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to the show. Wilton Sossion, former NAT Secretary and nominated Member of Parliament, is also a friend of Good Morning Kenya. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa, for coming. Elijah Njagi Ireri, who is an advocate, is a lawyer also, and governance expert, and Professor Fred Ogola, who is an economist and a convener, J25 movement. Gentlemen, asante sana for coming to the show. And you, as a viewer, thank you for your valid company. My name is Victor Lo. Good morning. Bye-bye.
In a world where news is ever changing, staying informed is more important than ever.
Join us every week on News Check, your go-to show for the latest in current affairs, breaking news and in-depth analysis.
A warm welcome to KBC News Check.
From politics to global events, we bring you content that matter to you.
We're not just speaking about the governance and how we want to see it, but want to actually participate.
Get your facts, hear from the experts, and really understand what is happening around you.
We need to change our system first.
You have to do the impossible
Yes.
to make sure the message is home.
Stay ahead, stay informed, stay engaged.
Will these people, everybody agree?
Just listen to me.
Let's give him a chance to clear the air.
Catch News Check every Tuesday and Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Only on KBC Channel 1.
Greetings in the name of the Most High Jah Rastafari. My good name is Marley Moses, the positive warrior, alongside...
Yes, sir, DJ D-Rage, the baddest. Each and every Wednesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 TV.
Tunakuletea the biggest reggae party in 254 in a yard extra. Extra niceness of reggae music.
Extra dose of entertainment.
When the thing is nice,
we have to do it twice.
Wiki hii kwenye mkulima
tunajifunza namna ya kumfuga ng'ombe wa maziwa
na kisha jinsi ya kutumia teknolojia shambani.
Watoto wetu wamemaliza shule, wengine wamemaliza college na ni hapa tu ukulima.
Ungana nasi siku ya Jumamosi saa 10:30 kwa mseto kamili wa kilimo
hapa KBC Channel 1.
I have two talents. One of them is dancing and the other one is acting. Dancing makes me feel like I'm flying.
And today's book is The Wolf and the Seven Little Kids.
My name is Abigail Kuleche, and today I'll be making an Italian dish, lasagna. Today I'll be making the beef version.
For Father's Day, we're going to make a card.
Today we'll be talking about overcoming temptation, living in a world of sin. There are many challenges, temptations that come our way.
God anakupenda tu venye uko, just the way you are. So you don't need to do anything for God to love you more, and you don't need to do anything less for God to love you less.
If you are in Christ, you can be in the world, but whatever is in the world will not get into you.
Watching Good Morning Kenya. This is The Viewpoint. My name is Mike. We shift gears and talk about matters to do with the brand of the country, positioning Kenya as for trade export trade. And in that conversation, I'm joined by Ms. Floyce Mokabana, who is the CEO of Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, karibu sana. When we talk about brand of the country, really, what are we talking about?
So the brand of the country speaks to how the country is perceived in the international space. But when you look at it from a professional perspective, you want to be able to brand the country with an objective, a commercial objective, which is to ensure that the country is perceived as a destination of choice for trade, tourism, investment, and culture. So that is what a brand is. Then let's go and narrow down to how the Kenyan brand is viewed in the international and the position that we have taken in the international space. So you find that the Kenyan brand is viewed as a brand that has got a high number of highly educated, entrepreneurial, young, innovative population, and that as well, that it is a position where we are able to have iconic products for export, our tea, our coffee, our nuts, our flowers. They're iconic in the sense that we consider them to be, on a comparative basis, much better than what is offered out to the world. We are also positioning from the scenic safaris that we have, the uniqueness that is Kenya, that we can be able to use to tell the story. So other than the safaris and the big five, we also have a unique story in our athletes.
Yes.
So that's part of our brand positioning. And the issue is, once you pick the various touch points of the brand, because it speaks to the people, the products, the culture, the iconic statements, you weave a narrative that allows us to then position it as a country of choice. And how are we doing it? We are saying that the Kenyan brand offers, especially to the international investors, a logistical hub for them to be able to venture into the rest of Africa and East Africa through the various integration agreements that you have, the East African Community, and most recently the AFCFTA. We are talking about the hub being, Kenya being a hub for both financial services and as well as a logistic hub to the rest of the East African nations, Sudan, the landlocked ones, Sudan, Rwanda. We are talking about Kenya having a source of good quality products. If you're looking to buy coffee, tea, flowers, nuts, we are saying our products are premium. And actually, as part of that branding process, we have what we call our Made in Kenya mark, where we try to position Kenyan products as good quality and good quality and authentic brands. And we do that by ensuring and associating it with Kenya through the use of the Made in Kenya mark. So we request for manufacturers and producers of the same to be able to take up the mark, and after ascertaining three things. You are certain that the product is, the raw materials are Kenyan, the labor force used to prepare the materials are predominantly Kenyan, and the ownership is Kenyan, and as well that the products of high quality. So that means it has to have gone through a certification process of their own. And then using that mark, we're able to then identify the product as Kenyan. And when we are branding the country as a source of the best flowers or best flowers, best coffee, best tea, then you can use that mark to be able to position your products. So what are we saying in a nutshell? That the Kenyan brand can be used, and we are positioning, especially in the international space, to be seen as a springboard because of the various integration agreements that you've gone through to Africa and East Africa generally, because of how we've been able to give advantages to whichever investor is coming to set up in Kenya, and to be able to use that as a stepping stone to now move into exports into the international space.
So actually what you mentioned about AFCFTA and the integration of East African Community makes Kenya a very strategic gateway to the African market.
Yes, and that is one of the branding positioning that we were trying to work with when we were talking to Kenya as a brand. The logistic hub that allows you to do that. The labor force that will allow you to actually develop the products that you want to be able to share. The fact that in a country where the world is very concerned about climate change, that you're able to use renewable energy at 90%. The fact that you are able to have a financial hub that does not have constraints about capital outflows and inflows after investment. And even the fact that we have a robust legal framework that allows you to be able to follow through with investment activities that follow through in terms of formation, in terms of conflict resolution. It positions it as a country that an investment country that allows you to bring in your investment here, do your products for exports, and then use the various trade agreements that you have to ensure that you see your market bigger than Kenya, bigger than East Africa and Africa.
Yes. You know, Kenya is also known for tourism, and it's there's also the Kenya Tourism Board.
Yes.
So how do you work with them and other stakeholders to make sure that the brand of the country comes out as unified?
So that is very true, because the nation brand has to be seen. There are various facets to the nation brand. There are various touch points. So there's a touch point when it comes to trade, there's a touch point when it comes to investment, there's indeed a touch point when it comes to culture and tourism. So then how do you work? The way the Kenyan system is set in terms of the brand, there are people who managing the various touch points that are done, and as you mentioned, KTB is one of them. And they have an amazing magical Kenya brand. But the Kenyan, the role that KEPROBA plays and how it is envisioned in the legal notice that created us is to create a coordinated effort. Coordinated in the sense that the positioning that you have for your tourism brand should speak to what to what the investment brand is speaking, to what the trade brand is speaking, to what the sports brand is speaking. So you're talking about a unified a whole of government approach in managing the brand. And that is why, for example, when you're looking at from an international perspective, Kenya will be seen as a single brand. The compartmentalizations are for us to be able to manage it, but they will look at it as a single brand. And you'll find that when now you have an opportunity to be able to showcase the whole of Kenya, all those brands need to be able to speak to each other and say the same thing. And we have an opportunity when you look at the Japan Osaka 2025 Expo that we are currently running. And that is an expo that is taking place between April 13th to October 13th. And there are 161 countries showcasing around the world. On a daily basis, they're expecting visitors of around 150 million. And for the 6 months, they're actually expecting 28.5 million visitors to come to, around it. But what is most importantly is that the international place and platform that it creates, because of the 28 million visitors, at least 5 million or thereabouts are considered to be foreigners. And they're coming to see what each country is able to offer. So again, when we are showcasing as Kenya, we cannot go under a single brand. We have to have a unified and coordinated effort, and which is exactly what we are doing as Kenya. KEPROBA just takes the role of a responsible national agency, but it has a duty to coordinate with all the other brand touch points to ensure that Kenya is properly represented. So that even when you're looking about the Expo, Japan 2025, the objectives for us to participate is to actually have a link to the various touch points that we are talking about, especially from an economic and commercial perspective. So as a country in preparation, there are a few things we have done. For the 6 months, we have a pavilion that will be showcasing the very best of Kenyan products. We also have a segment on culture where we have a sample bar that allows the visitors to interact with Kenyan cultural music. We have been able to also share and work with various stakeholders to showcase investment opportunities around. And as well as tourism experiences, we've been able to curate tourism experiences that exhibitors can be able to engage with. And the objective of this is just to give them a glimpse of what Kenya is about. And that will run for the 6 months going forward. From there on, as we're getting visitors to the pavilion, we are seeking to get from them a change in perception of how they see Kenya by engaging with how the touch points that they have with the brand. And thereafter, hoping that that engagement will create a conversion by seeing whether we've been able to communicate to them the need for them to invest, to trade, and to visit Kenya. And we do follow-ups after that, so that then it can make sense. And that will run in the 6 months. But within those 6 months, there is going to be activities that relate, we call the Kenya Week, that now we want to be able to use that period in those 6 months to focus on what Kenya can offer. what is it that Kenya can offer? And we have then planned a week-long activities associated with Osaka, and we begin on 21st of June, which is like a week or two from now. And we begin with a diaspora dinner. You remember one of the touch points we said about the Kenyan brand is the fact that we have a highly educated entrepreneurial group. And in Japan, it's no exception. We have Kenyans who have done extremely well. So we want to use that opportunity to be able to just have a meeting with them, use that to first of all fit them, because we have got quite a number of distinguished Kenyans doing big businesses in Japan, holding regional offices in Japan, and we want to use that to fit them. But most importantly, to align them to the very unique position they find themselves in, that they have created a home away from Kenya, and therefore they know what it means to be in Japan, but also because of their roots, they're able to understand what Kenya has to offer. That presents a nice nexus for them to be brand ambassadors for us in all the areas that all the touch points that we're talking about, investment, trade, tourism. And that is one of the things we want to be able to align them with during that diaspora dinner, and also come up with a working framework in which that is possible for them. That will be on Saturday, 21st. On 22nd, another touch point we have is from Kenyans, we all know it's athletics. Kenyans, we are known as the best athletes. And surprisingly, Japan is a running nation. They love to run. And so we want to be able to use that as a soft diplomacy to let them interact with the athletes. So we are doing a Run with the Champions marathon on Sunday. So we have Kenyan athletes from here who will be interacting with the Japanese runners, and thereafter scheduled a few interactions with the various Japanese schools where the athletes can also engage with the students. And the beauty about it is that we're already now showing soft power. We're trying to see what everybody sees Kenya for, and using it to leverage what the next steps that can arise, if it's going to, in terms of trade investment and tourism. That is on the 22nd. On the 23rd, we have a high-level business forum. And the objective of that high-level business forum is to allow Kenyan businessmen to be able to interact with the Japanese businessmen on the other side. And how have we done it? We have actually been able to recruit 60 big private sector businesses that are going to take their products and their business profiles to Japan. We are trying to create market linkages, trying to match them with the sectors that are on the Japan business on the other side. And we are hoping that once that networking is done, there'll be an issue of getting from their information that can be able to further their partnerships going forward. Mike, you'll appreciate that international trade will always be about information asymmetry. Somebody has something you need on the other side, but you do not know. So the level of trying to bridge that information asymmetry through the use of business-to-business forums is a very apt way to address information asymmetry. Because we realize at that point you will get leads and then you'll move on to deals. And that is what you're going to do on 23rd. On 24th, really this is going to be, it's called the Kenya National Day of Honor. And this is a courtesy that the Japan embassy, the Japan government is giving to Kenya as a way of appreciation of all the work that they have done to be able to ensure that they are participated into the Expo 2025. It will be an exchange of culture, recognition of what Kenya has done, and a focus on Kenya. During that period, we also want to do a flower activation. Because, as I mentioned, we have iconic products, and flowers is one of them. And we want to be able to do an activation around flowers so that then again, when they think about Kenya, they will also consider flowers as one of the iconic products and create a market for the same. So those are the activities that we've planned for the specific week that we are going for in Japan, Osaka 2025, and then follow through with the exhibition that is going on. And then in the months to follow, we are going to be narrowing down on thematic areas that we want to be able to showcase. So if it's going to be about education or health or investment, infrastructural investment, private-public partnerships, we'll now be focusing on the various months until October 13th to ensure that the story of Kenya and the brand of Kenya continues to be current and for people to be able to appreciate the various facets that the Kenyan brand has to offer.
Yes. You said something about change in perception. And Kenya has been participating in expos since for a very long time. Have we been able to change perception and make the Kenyan brand, the Kenyan identity, be known as a trade export destination?
I want to then, that's a very good question, and I want to narrow down with the last expo we did. Yes. So we did in, there was Dubai 2020 that we did in 2022, and we were able to showcase the best of Kenya with an objective as well, and a commercial objective. Yeah. And what we saw and what we realized during that expo is that because of that interaction, there were milestones that were created. Number one, we noticed that Kenyans were able to make spot sales, and during that whole period, they were able to make sales. We were able to document at least 30 million that Kenyans were able to sell as spot sales. But most importantly, there were contracts that were generated. Yes. And those that we were able to document were up to the tune of 582 million. But for me, what is interesting is the trend that comes from there. Because we realized, even after we left, there is a trend when you're looking at the relationship of trade relationship between Kenya and not only UAE, but the whole of the Gulf countries, the Gulf countries. Yes. We noticed that there was a growth of almost 70%, from 50 Kenya shillings 50 billion in 2022 to 85 million by...
That's in terms of exports?
In terms of exports. By 2024. But what was interesting is that while that segment, that market was growing at 70%, the rest of the Kenyan export growth was growing at 35%. So that means then the efforts that we put in Dubai has been able to elevate the products that are coming from Kenya so that they are not growing in tandem with the rest. But the other thing we also noticed is that there was an increase in tourism flow from Dubai. So that we are seeing an increase of around 15% from that space. And that actually aligns with the objectives that we had done. And importantly, as part of also trying to create a relationship and lasting sustainable relationships, the Expo Dubai created a platform for the negotiation of the economic CEPA, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with UAE, which was just finalized but going through the ratification process. Yes. So we realized that there are benefits to the Expo beyond the time that the Expo is running.
Yes. And also, when we're talking about these exhibitions, they are small-scale traders and entrepreneurs who would want to get these market linkages now. In terms of looking at the Expo ecosystem, how do you rope in those small-scale traders and entrepreneurs?
But I think that's a very important point, and we actually encourage it for the simple reason that it is quite one thing to be able to be told about a market, but going to the market and being able to experience for yourself what needs to be done plays a totally different ballgame. So especially even in this Expo, aside from the Expo, because you realize that at the end of the day, the market access becomes an important issue. We have organized to have exhibitions away from the Expo site to be able to encourage Kenyan exporters to be able to join, go for, to exhibit their sales, their wares and sell them. So we have come up with, in partnership with the mayor of Osaka to give us some space. So we have one space in an area called Kuzomo, where we have 20 exhibitors that will be taking to be able to sell their tea, their coffee, the leather and leather products. We also have textiles and apparels, so that they can just be able to appreciate and have an opportunity. So we will be sending exhibitors to be able to experience the market in Japan, and we'll follow through. And that's why even with the other one, you notice there was a segment of sports sales that we're able to document.
Yes.
So we are actually going to follow through. And the objective is for us even to get learnings on how it is to be able to go into the market. And what learnings are you getting? And from those learnings about the consumer taste, consumer preferences, the regulatory environment towards selling in Japan, and as well as the standards that are required. Once we get that feedback, how are you able to then use that feedback to improve your product for the export market, and also now to position yourself differently?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's take a short break. We continue with this conversation in just a bit. Stay with us.
Even ashamed of yourself. Huu ni mtoto wako hapa and she needs his help. Na kazi yako ni kurushia watu midomo without doing anything.
What you want, Pete?
See you and to know how you're doing.
Don't think that I am a moron or an imbecile. In short, I'm not schizophrenic.
Sasa unaongea vitu gani? Hata sielewi unasema nini.
Utasimama hapo mpaka saa ngapi?
Jen, kindly, I would like to serve breakfast.
Hii kitu yangu imejaa mambo mengi sana. Nataka unipe nafasi nitulie. Sawa?
Kenya's future is taking shape. Introducing the 2025-2026 national budget. A budget built on priorities and focused on what matters most. Empowering agriculture for food security and prosperity. Supercharging digital infrastructure for innovation and opportunity. Building affordable homes, creating jobs and transforming lives. And ensuring quality healthcare for all. So, how much will it all cost? Well, a proposed budget of 4.2 trillion is on the table. Get the full picture, understand the numbers, and see the impact. The 2025-2026 budget on KBC Channel 1.
Today we'll be talking about overcoming temptation, living in a world of sin. There are many challenges, temptations that come our way.
God anakupenda tu venye uko. Just the way you are. So you don't need to do anything for God to love you more, and you don't need to do anything less for God to love you less.
If you are in Christ, you can be in the world, but whatever is in the world will not get into you.
This is the viewpoint right here on Good Morning Kenya. You know, Kenya positions or pivots on its uniqueness in terms of things that contribute to its brand. We're talking about culture, athletics, agriculture and everything. But also, Madam, so far from the expos that we have participated in as a country, what would you say so far have been the products that have gained traction?
The thought that comes to mind, especially for me, is the flower, the growth of flowers directly exported from Kenya as a result of the expo that we did in Japan and a flower activation. So that it was a no-brainer that we also needed to do a flower activation in Japan because of the response that we got.
Yes.
So we are getting direct, before, and if you look at the horticultural space, the wholesale, most flowers are bought from Amsterdam. Yes. So that even Kenyans sell their flowers, take their flowers to Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam they are to the rest of the world. But now we are seeing people engaging Kenyan flower exporters directly without reference to Amsterdam because of the information and the exposure that they got through the Dubai, Expo Dubai, and the flower activation we did around it. So that would be one of the products that I see. But the other, again, in Dubai, and as well as is the case in Japan, we were doing sampling for coffee. And the lines continue, for Kenyan coffee, continue going quite some distance as we try and see, as people try to appreciate the Kenyan coffee that we are offering at the expo. That is one of the things that we're going to do at the exhibition. We are offering sampling for Kenyan tea and coffee. And when people are engaging with it, we're getting quite good reviews. And as a result of that, we have now been had to engage. The queries that you get is to engage with Kenyan importers of Kenyan coffee to be able to sell those coffees for us there in Kenya.
In all this, it all points to one thing, really, value addition to leverage the export market. There's that important. So, how do you reach out to county governments to ensure that even as you make ways for the export trade, that the person at the grassroots level can benefit from this?
You know, you raise so many pertinent issues in that question that you have talked about. First of all, you've talked about the issue of value addition and what value addition means to Kenyan products. And just allow me to take some few minutes to talk about that. Because you realize Kenyan products are usually sold, especially the main ones, because they're agricultural, they're being sold in bulk, they are being sold unbranded. And as we mentioned, they remain an important part of the brand because of the quality that they sell, and they're considered premium. But if you were to sell them to the international market in the bulk form that they are sold, unbranded as they are, that premium does not fall as an export value into our country. It goes to those who buy in bulk and are able to value add on them, and then be able to position them as Kenyan products. So that is one of the interventions then we want to be able to push, that even as we sell our iconic products, we want to sell them on a value-added basis. And that is why the government is making deliberate efforts to ensure that it is now possible for you to do value addition for the agriculture. The point is the use of county aggregated industrial parks, so that which are done in conjunction with the national government, in conjunction with the county government, where we are creating a space and a place for people to have an opportunity to value add their products, as opposed to having to rush them bulk to the international market. We also have opportunities where we are setting up special economic zones to allow for common manufacturing facilities to be done, so that again, there's an opportunity for Kenyans to value add before they export. And again, that's the other nexus that you create. The fact that county governments are an important stakeholder in this process. And they're important for the reason that, number one, not only is it that the agriculture is a devolved function, but it is the product at the county that is the one which is an exportable product. So you have to be able to manage it from that perspective. And we work very well with the county governments. We ensure that with county governments having the role of agricultural production, we work with them to capacity build in terms to capacity build their exporters in terms of giving them information about what it means to export. So we do various capacity building, but most importantly also do outreach together with the county governments. We go and visit the exporters on the ground, and we engage them on what it means to be an exporter. Do they have any pain points? Do they require any support from us? And as a result thereof, We also work with a directorate in Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency called Trade Advisory Services that engages with the exporters on a one-on-one whenever they require issues to be addressed when it comes to export inquiries. We also, as the body that is mandated to promote exports from Kenya, once in a while we'll get inquiries from international buyers seeking iconic Kenyan products, which then we use to link with the database of exporters that we have. And as a result, you'll find that we work with the county government in a manner that aligns with the fact that exports remain are a product of the county, and they remain an iconic brand when it comes to appreciating that the Kenyan brand, when it comes to trade, is really based on agricultural produce. Yes.
There's also, Kenya is known as Silicon Savannah, and this is one of the non-traditional export that we have, even in the creative space. We leveraged that as a country to make sure that we have access to international markets.
So that is one of the branding that Kenya has, as a Silicon Savannah, having been the premier home for M-Pesa. And it becomes very important for us to also look at non-traditional products and services as an export to the world. And in that regard, we work to ensure that that brand touch point of seeing Kenya as a Silicon Savannah is not lost by creating narrative around it, showcasing our innovative techpreneurs as a space and awarding them, and then giving them linkages, market linkages to the international world in where it is they can be able to place their products. As we talk about the tech space, what comes to mind is that even we have various organizations, international organizations, that come and try and partner to get these products out of the country. A case in point is the import desk from Germany that has been working with techpreneurs, trying to see whether they can be able to obtain services, ICT services for use in the German market, with the recognition that Kenya is a country that you'll be able to get such products because of the positioning that Silicon Savannah has in the global space.
Let's say I want to export, and let's say avocados or anything, flowers, and I'm at the grassroots level. But I've heard about Kenya Export and Branding, Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency today. How do I ensure that I can engage you to help me get into this export space?
But that's a very good question, because we're here to serve the Kenyan people. And as I mentioned, the major barrier, as you're dealing with export trade, what you're looking for is to break the information asymmetry. So the first thing that KEPROBA will give you is information. And how do you do that? So obviously there's going to be the bid for us to be able to contact us. And we have various ways in which you can do that. We have our email and our website, www.makeitkenya.go.ke. As well as you can call us. You can be able to call us on our dedicated lines. I think we have one number that I can be able to share off is 0722-205-875. Once you call us, you give us your request that this is what I have an interest in exporting flowers. And this is so there are some preliminaries we want to find out. What is your supply capacity? Because international space is not for small. They require a huge demand for it.
What is the minimum, for instance?
So there isn't really a minimum, but what you will find, especially when you get an international trade, is that they will be requiring repeat. So they'll give you a contract. It won't be one sale. They can give you a contract for a year and expect you, for example, to be able to service 1 container a week or 1 container a month. So supply becomes an important issue. And again, that is why the county aggregated industrial parks become a game changer, because if all of you are doing small quantities, you can be able to aggregate at the county aggregated program, so that you can then be able to sell. So that's number one.
Yes.
And then after that, there's once we are certain of your supply capacity, we can then take you through export procedures. And in the minimum, export procedures in Kenya will require to, especially because you're dealing with agricultural products, to get an export license from the Agricultural Food Authority. It will require for you to have phytosanitary certification from KEFIS. And then after that, there's also the need for you to just understand what international trade is about. And that's where our capacity building niche is built. Because you have to learn how to be able to negotiate, you have to learn how to be able to price your products. Are you pricing them X duty, CIF, are you pricing it CIF, are you pricing it X wax? And the implications of the pricing that you do. And what risks are you transferring? What risks are you keeping to yourself, and what risks are you transferring? Then there's the logistical chain that you also have to learn about. Who's going to do for you the transportation, and what is it that they owe you, and what is it that you have to give in exchange? So there's a whole export readiness awareness academy around that. But having said that, you can see that it can be overwhelming. So as an agency, there are few instances in which we are trying to see how we can bridge that, especially for a first-time exporter. So of late, we have come up with an initiative with various stakeholders, being spearheaded by Real Sources Africa, called Trade Connect Services. That Trade Connect Services, as it is currently constituted, is focusing on the African market. So we are trying to see whether we can be able to amalgamate all those things that you have to do, so that all you have to tell us is that this is a product that I have to sell. How can you take it to me to the market? And then they work to ensure that you're able to get all the services that are needed to get it to that market. And in some instances, especially for manufactured goods, Africa Connect Trade Connect is able to do for you the last mile distribution. Yes.
All right. There's a lot to talk about, and I'm told we are out of time, but I want you to give your last submissions.
Thank you very much. So for us, for me, I would like to let all Kenyans appreciate that the Kenyan brand is really a touch point for all Kenyans. They all participate, and I'm glad when I see you with your bracelet, because I can see you have a sense of pride in our country. And that is the first step. And number two, as well, what I'd like to say with regards to especially the mandate of Kenya Export Promotion is to remember to always brand Kenyan, export Kenyan, and in the process build Kenya.
Yes. Thank you so much for making time to come and talk about matters to do with positioning Kenya for export trade. Asante sana. That is Madam Flois Mukabala, who is the CEO of Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, joining us here on The Viewpoint to talk about that conversation. This ends here, but Good Morning Kenya continues shortly. Stay with us.
Say the earth without art would just be get it? We circumnavigate the globe and traverse the local scene to bring you art and culture at their very best. From fine art, culinary art, performing arts, and even cultural events, you name it, and we have got you covered. My name is Kevin Kasioki, and I will be serving you this and much, much more each and every Friday at 8 p.m. only on KBC. Channel 1.
The men and women in boats, they are commanded to defend and protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Republic of Kenya. Their bravery knows no limits.
Make a man go through the wall without breaking the wall.
Laziness, it is not in our vocabulary.
But what are their stories, their tales? Military Tales, every Saturday at 9 p.m. with Ben Troy Njoe.
Kinyume na mitazamo potovu, wanawake wengi huchagua kuvaa hijab kwa hiari kama ishara ya uhuru na kiroho na uhuru wa kujieleza. Ni uamuzi wa moyo, si wa shinikizo.
Na Mtume sallallahu alaihi wasallam pia katika hadithi akatuambia ijtanibu sab'a muhabikat, jiepusheni na mambo saba zenye kuangamiza watu. Na miongoni mwa hizo mambo saba akataja Mtume sallallahu alaihi wasallam kuwa ni ashirku billah, ni mtu kumshirikisha Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Hivyo basi njia rahisi ya wewe kujikinga kutokana na shida na dhiki na balaa ni kusoma suratul Falaq, suratul Nas na suratul Ikhlas. Sura hizi zitakukinga wewe mtazamaji wetu kutokana na shida ambazo zitakukumba katika maisha yako. Pepo ya dunia, pepo ya dunia.
Today we'll be talking about overcoming temptation, living in a world of sin. There are many challenges, temptations that come our way.
God anakupenda tu venye uko. Just the way you are. So you don't need to do anything for God to love you more, and you don't need to do anything less for God to love you less.
If you are in Christ, you can be in the world, but whatever is in the world will not get into you.
I am joined by three phenomenal gentlemen who are pushing past stereotypes, who are turning pain into purpose, and who are redefining what it means to be a father.
Fatherhood is amazing. That's the one thing I must say about fatherhood.
I enjoy just to connect with my children. So playing it forward, but also shaping them for the future.
I became a single dad 9 years ago now. And that is the time you really understand, one, the role of a woman in a house. I think for me, the biggest surprise was that fatherhood is more about presence than provision.
Don't Google everything. Go and ask, because fatherhood in the US, fatherhood in Ukambani, fatherhood in Samburu is different.
Honor is your character, that you build your character in such a way that your children would want to be like you.
You're watching The Viewpoint. My name is Mike Migu. This is Good Morning Kenya. Now, being a Wednesday, it's all about women at the forefront. And in studio, we are talking about setting up startups that make social impact. In studio, I'm joined by Lindsay Strantley, who is a founding partner at Synergy Collaborative. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be here.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about startups that make social impacts, from your perspective, how can they become a tool for solving real-life problems?
Yeah. I mean, I think the starting place is that as a founder, as a leader within a startup, you need to be driven by passion, have a sense of purpose, and make sure that your startup knows the the problem you're trying to solve, both the social problem as well as the economic opportunity that you can create through your work. So in our case, as the Synergy Collaborative, and then Fresh Life, which is our sanitation services company within the collaborative, we focus on providing great sanitation, and in doing so, create a lot of jobs and economic opportunity for the communities we serve, as well as obviously with great sanitation means you have great environmental benefits and health benefits for those communities and for Nairobi and Kenya as a whole.
Yes. So from what you've said, founder motivation and intent are crucial when it comes to setting up a startup that makes impact.
Yes, and very much.
All right. How does it speak to the fact that, does it mean that for a startup of such nature, they have to pivot several times before they can find their purpose?
Great question. I would say the purpose is your North Star. It's the thing that as the founder and all of the leaders, the team, working on that startup, should be aligned on from day one. But now how you accomplish that purpose, you will need to pivot so many times along the way. As the challenges and opportunities for the customers that you serve, the communities that we serve, evolve to identify what is the best way. So again, in our case, to serve the most people with the best sanitation. And at different times, we've adjusted our service delivery as well as the stakeholders, the additional partners that you need to bring on board to make sure that you're maximizing your purpose.
Yes. Does it mean that, let's say, for a founder, you have to leave the problem that you're trying to solve? Is it a must that you have to?
To lead that, yeah.
To leave that, live within that problem so that you can solve it.
Good question. I would say you need to deeply understand the problem that you're trying to solve. So in our case, we focus on great sanitation for urban informal settlements and other areas without sewers. So I can't say that this was the community that I lived in at the time that we started this work. So instead, to better understand the problem means both spending time with your customers, with the communities you're going to serve, and then making sure your team does come with a lot of that lived experience. So even if it's not me as the founder that lives that every single day, I'm surrounded by and formed by a great team who has lived that experience, and making sure that we are always responsive to our customers and understanding their needs and how do we continually improve our services.
Yes. Between the social impact aspect and the business side of a startup, which should supersede the other, or how do they balance?
Yeah, I think for each startup, that balance might look a little different. So that may depend on your investors, what kind of returns are they expecting, and the other stakeholders you bring on board. So as Fresh Life, we work really closely with the government, and as well as other social impact partners who are focused on, I'd say, more on impact than on economic returns for the company. And instead, we see some of that impact is the economic returns for the communities that we serve. So that's where we focused as Fresh Life, but certainly many startups may focus more on the profits and see that the key, you have to remain sustainable, financially profitable in order to continue your impact. So at all times you have to keep enough focus on that financial viability and sustainability and profitability, if that's what your investors expect, in order to continue to generate impact.
So whatever you want to achieve must be in line with the expectations of the investors.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Now, starting something up require funding. So how do such startups, especially ones that want to make a social, they want to leave a social footprint, how do they fare within the funding ecosystem? Yes.
Yes. So for startups that have that impact focus, it's key to blend probably multiple forms of capital to both to get started and with capital injections you'll need along the way. So as the Synergy Collaborative and as Fresh Life, we've brought on financing partners, particularly in the kind of philanthropic like grants, especially in the early days, as well as then public donors, so some of the government, international donors, as well as significant kind of in-kind support and collaboration with our utility and government partners here in Kenya. So you need to blend different kinds of capital, I think, at different times to make sure that you're have the working capital you need to begin and can sustain your operations as you grow and bring on your customer base. And in our case, because we're primarily focused on that impact, we will work often to bring in additional nonprofit, philanthropic support that can allow us to really focus on that impact even over the profitability. But in other cases, so we have a partner organization called Regen Organics that does all the waste treatment of our sanitation waste. And in their case, they've brought in social impact focused equity or debt investors. So they do need to obviously give returns back to those equity or debt investors, but they're part of why they come on board is to see that impact. So again, just like you said, there's a balance of impact and profitability, and in each of those two cases, so with Fresh Life or with Regen Organics, the balance is slightly different, but the impact is always critical.
How does a business plan play out in all this now?
Business plan is so key. And when we first started, I think you have a vision of exactly how it's going to play out. And the only thing that's for sure is that it won't go exactly according to plan. So you need that plan, and you need to be ready to pivot when circumstances change or assumptions that you've made turn out not to be quite as you thought they would be.
It goes back to the first point that we were talking about, startups pivoting several times before they can find their footing. Now, there's also, how can they leverage networks and partnerships now and maybe expand funding opportunities to get the exact impact they want within the community?
Yeah. Partners are key. We couldn't do, we serve 300,000 people every day with great sanitation, and there's no way we could do that without the partners that we've brought on board over the years. Probably most importantly is our government partners. So we work with the utilities, so here in Nairobi, Kisumu, Eldoret, Mombasa, with the utilities in those cities, the public utilities, as well as the counties, and then of course the national government. I think even in a case that's less, as sanitation, obviously this is a government responsibility ultimately that we are coming on board as a partner to help provide, support our public sector partners in the private sector operations. But I think even in cases that are more, may say, profit focused, it's still critical to understand both those government partners, and then in both cases, as you said, to bring in financing, to understand who else really cares deeply about this. How do you help them care even more deeply so that they bring in the financing that you need? So whether that's grant funders or, like we said, in some cases, investors through equity or debt, and then really critically is the additional community stakeholders. So the other civil society organizations, other startups operating in the same space, that you need to understand what they're doing and how do you create synergies that all of our work together the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And that's all about collaboration with the full network of stakeholders.
Do you have to have expectations of the community that you want to impact when you want to start your operations of whatever kind in that area? Do you need to have expectations, or you get into it with an open mind?
I think on day zero, so before you begin, you should have an open mind that all startups need to be informed by primary market research. You go in and you understand the problem and make sure that you're, as a founder, as an early stage leader, that you're creating a solution that really fits that problem. And it's really important to check all of your assumptions at the door. You have to go in with that open mind. But as you learn, as you come to understand the problem, the business problem, and the impact problem that you want to solve, then key to that is understanding how the community is going to come on board as customers, as advocates, as employees, that they can bring their understanding and their skills to bear on that problem that you're solving.
You are into sanitation, and actually it's a public health issue. But then again, what are the opportunities there and the gaps that point to a market need?
Yeah, so indeed sanitation or lack of sanitation can have significant public health consequences, not just for the individual person, but whole communities, whole cities. You can see this also in the environmental consequences. We talk a lot, of course, about river cleanup, and we just had World Environment Day, so understanding how sanitation waste pollutes Nairobi, pollutes the cities we live in, and as a result also then leads to significant public health issues, which in turn lead to big economic issues. When you think people are sick and they're unable to go to work, unable to go to school, it's a lot of loss of productivity for thousands of people in our city every day. So there's this macroeconomic opportunity at the municipal and the public sector level to provide great sanitation. But now on the business level, I think that's where we're focused here. People have to spend money to access sanitation. So be that paying your utility bills, to Nairobi Water, simple here, or paying, to use a public toilet, maybe you're paying per use. So in our case as Fresh Life, we said we want to make sure even those who don't have access, who aren't connected to a sewer, how do they have great sanitation, a great toilet, every day, access 24 hours a day, and instead of spending on that per toilet, say public toilet access, you can say save that money and even spend less as a service fee, as a subscription toward our services. So there's hopefully an economic win-win where our customers are able to pay for the services, but now pay less than what they would be spending otherwise. And on top of that, like you said, because there's a public health issue, they're also saving in the money they might spend on health issues, on visiting a clinic, on lost wages for not being able to work that day from being sick, and even on top of the direct savings for our services as compared to the other options they might have.
What innovative solutions can be put in place, or they have been put in place so far, that you think they address sanitation in a manner that is sustainable?
So I think a key to making sure that everybody has great sanitation is to start by acknowledging we'll need multiple solutions. So there's no one sustainable solution for sanitation, no one silver bullet. Instead, we work with our government partners toward what we call a citywide inclusive sanitation approach, which is just sort of fancy words that mean we need to do several things, kind of a portfolio approach, if you take a business idea to it. So that means where we have made investments in sewers that work well. Let's maintain those. Let's serve people with that infrastructure investment. And then where we don't have sewer access, and maybe won't in the near term, there's lots of reasons, budgets, topography, all sorts of issues, challenges to expand. So for the half of our population here in Nairobi that doesn't have access to a sewer, what are the other sustainable ways that we can provide great, equally high quality sanitation? And that's where we've come in as Fresh Life through an approach called container-based sanitation services, where instead of pipes, basically think of it like the way we have solid waste collection. We're able to seal and remove entire containers to ensure continuous service with a beautiful high quality toilet that everyone has access to.
Setting up, we've talked about setting up those startups, but it's not always a smooth sail.
No.
What would you say are the biggest impediments to coming up with startups that make social impact?
Well, I think your questions are spot on in terms of financing. So an obvious challenge is making sure you have the funding from the beginning, and then you almost always will need more than you think in those early days, because it's probably going to take longer to bring on the number of customers you project, bring in the revenue that you project, and along the way, you need to make sure you don't run out of cash. Ultimately, cash is king. So that's a key part, is making sure you've brought in those partners, investors, financing. I think another big part is having the right team, and especially if that your team can deeply understand the customer segment and the kind of market and impact problem that you're trying to solve. So bringing in those great colleagues, both as leaders, and in our case, what we've done as Fresh Life is most of our team we hire from the communities we serve, and we invest a lot in their growth, supporting them in their professional development, such that today many of our managers started with us as entry-level staff, straight from the communities, the customer segment that we're serving.
So, coming up with a startup that wants to make a difference in the lives of people is a noble idea. But then again, at what point do you bring in the government, the private sector, all those stakeholders to ensure that the dream of making social income, besides making business, is achieved?
Yeah, great question. When we first began, I think we started very much focused as a business. Like a good entrepreneur, we said, okay, we have this idea, this model, we can serve our customers great as the private sector, as an individual social enterprise, all on our own. And I think that's you have to have that kind of bold belief, I think, as an entrepreneur. And then pretty quickly you learn you're going to need the whole village to come with you, and definitely the government as well. And so from the beginning, we were in good communication, kind of collaboration with the government, but saw them as as the regulator, as the advisor, as opposed to like the key partner that they've become. And so that's one of the pivots we made along the way, was to say, for this to be sustainable in the long term, this has to be in partnership with and through the utilities and the government, more than a kind of regulatory relationship, but as a kind of holding hands side by side in the implementation and in kind of embedding the approach within their strategic plans and their long-term financial planning.
What should be the go-to-market strategy for any startup that is seeking to make that social impact we are talking about?
To go to market, again, the first thing you have to do is literally go to the market, go really spend that time understanding that market, the opportunities that you can bring with your solution, and then start initially slowly. Don't try to go in, I would say, on day one to 100% of scale that you're aiming for. If you start slowly with those kind of first customers, those early adopters, right? You're going to learn so much from them of what do they appreciate about your service? What's the real value proposition? Like in our case, we thought that the value proposition was our beautiful Fresh Life toilet. And it is, but what people appreciated even more was the service. It's making sure you have high quality service is even more important than kind of just the product by itself. And we learned that by listening to some of those early customers and ultimately adjusting then kind of how we sort of our pricing, our business model based on that feedback. So if you go too far, too fast, then I don't think you spend enough time listening to the customer and you're not still nimble enough. Once you get bigger, it's harder to pivot, right? You have so much more existing customer base, existing commitments. It's a lot more difficult to make those shifts later on when you're larger. So early on, be listening and learning and ready to be flexible based on what you learn.
Yes. You know, we are living in an information age. And for a startup, what is the importance of leveraging on the social media space or the digital space to make sure that you reach the right people?
Yes. We are very engaged with both our kind of customers, our end users, the communities that we serve on social media and through a range of mobile kind of applications that we've developed to communicate directly with our customers. It's equally important that we leverage social media to speak to the broader community, like we're doing this morning, right? It's important for everybody in Nairobi and in Kenya to understand the importance of sanitation. It's something that when you have access to safe sanitation, we take for granted, totally. So it's really important that we are reminded that not everyone has that daily access, because only with that reminder will we all sufficiently prioritize sanitation within public budgets, within private sector partnerships, and as a community, as a country. So that's where that level of engagement online is really key to continue to raise and sustain awareness of how critical great sanitation is for us as Kenya to thrive.
Any startup that is coming up, does it need a strong brand first, or they first need to test their business model?
I think the brand and the business model have to go hand in hand. So we did develop the Fresh Life brand, initial logo, before we started operations. So and in this case, we did a lot of research with our kind of target customer segment to explain or understand, from their perspective, the problem and explain the potential solution and understand then what brands, like the names itself, resonate with that problem as they experience it and with the solutions that we were bringing forward. And so that's where we came with Fresh Life, came from that process. But now for that to become a brand that anyone recognizes, that's meaningful to any of our customers, that part went hand in hand with actually starting those initial operations, bringing on those early adopters we talked about. So in our case, Fresh Life started, our Fresh Life toilet started only as commercial toilets. So we worked with micro entrepreneurs. So think the men and women who run dukas, water points, maybe they have a kinyozi, whatever this is, where they have a small business, and now they could add 1 or 2 or 3 toilets in that same space to serve their neighbors. And what this did was it made our brand very visible, very public, because the toilets were all in public places. So people came to recognize, like, those blue toilets, those blue structures are toilets, and they're always going to be clean and safe and open. And that kind of word of mouth is so powerful. And I think so key, especially in the early days where you don't have yet so much revenue, right? You need to leverage that brand and word of mouth from reputation. And then over time, we've now shifted to focus most of our operations are actually inside like a residential plot. So directly to a, within a household or within a residential setting, which are not so visible. But we were able to leverage that brand recognition, that visibility that we had from the initial go-to-market strategy of those public commercial toilets, such that now residential communities, schools know what those are, and then they're coming to us saying they need this great sanitation, obviously inside their neighborhoods too.
If I have come up with a startup that wants to make that social impact, how do I scale up? We are talking about franchising, making tech solutions or partnerships. How do I go about that?
And I think to scale up, the first step is to get your unit economics right. So if you start to scale something that you haven't really figured out, so that the economics aren't there, or the customer value proposition isn't solid, then you might grow into create a really big mess, create something that's large but not sustainable, or only serving misunderstood and is taken up by part of the customers you wanted to serve, but not interesting to the rest. So to scale, first is to really understand those unit economics and the value proposition, basically, why do your customers love what your service is, love your product, and then really lean in there. Once you are confident in the kind of economics and that value that you're creating, then it's much more straightforward to now kind of replicate that. Maybe it's in a new geography or reaching into additional customers where you can bring that same value and that same economic model.
Are there metrics to measuring the level of social impact that a startup may have?
Yes, it's very important. I think if you are an impact-focused startup, that you understand what is your probably one single most important impact metric, and then probably have a range of additional ways that you understand the dimensions of your impact. So for us as Fresh Life, the single most important thing is the number of people that we serve every day with great sanitation. So for us, that's almost 300,000 people. And that comes from having safe, open toilets. It's sort of obvious. If the toilets, the services aren't there, then people can't use them. So then we also measure not only the number of facilities, the size of the network, but also the standards. So how clean are they? If they're not clean, then we fix that, we close them down. So you're looking at those sort of health metrics. And then another key one for us is the tons of waste, so of sanitation waste, that we make sure is safely managed and treated. So right now that's 23,000 tons of waste every year that is that we're capturing sort of through our network and making sure it's safely treated, and that would otherwise probably be ending up in the rivers, in the community all around us here in Nairobi, in Kisumu, in Eldoret. And the last one for us that's really key, and I think something that we talk about a lot these days, is carbon. So by capturing those 23,000 tons of sanitation waste, we actually mitigate about 30,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. So it sounds kind of complicated. It just means methane. So basically, otherwise, all of that waste would be decomposing and emitting a lot of really dangerous greenhouse gases that we make sure doesn't happen. So those are some of the key ways we think about our impact. The people served, that's about dignity and health. The environmental impact in terms of waste removed and climate. And then finally, and most importantly, probably in the communities, is also the economic impact that we have. So the jobs created, directly employed by us, but also by our partners, our franchisees who operate our network. That's how we understand our impact.
Yes. All right. Now, any business that is, or even a startup that is operating, is it important to have an exit strategy, really?
I think it is important to have a long-term plan. And for some startups, that's going to mean that the investors or the founders exit and transition that to different leadership, to different owners, right? When you think of a startup kind of going public, it's exiting from those initial investors now to being bought by a broader base of owners, by the public, if you will. So that's one way of thinking of an exit. For something that's primarily impact focused, it's not going to generate large kind of profit returns. In that case, I think for Fresh Life, our exit, if you will, is that partnership with government. And that may not mean that we stop doing what we're doing, but that we're more kind of part and parcel of the utility plans and operations. And so, for example, if you go to Kisumu, our toilets are co-branded with Kiwasco, with the Kisumu Water and Sanitation Company. And over time, that kind of exit has to be that it looks more and more just like another part of the services that the utility is providing to all residents of Kisumu, right? That still might be done functionally by Fresh Life, so not necessarily leaving, but kind of exiting or transitioning, let's say, from the initial market entry that's very focused in our case on that initial brand and kind of company operations.
Yes. Thank you so much. Your final words.
My final words, and I have to emphasize just how important great sanitation is, and how much that can be the backbone of a thriving Kenya. We can be healthier, we can be cleaner, and ultimately live high quality lives that I think are what the Kenya of the future should be.
Yes, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you.
That is Lindsay Stradley, who is a founding partner of Synergy Collaborative, talking to us about setting up startups that make social impact. This is where we end this conversation and the entire Good Morning Kenya. On behalf of my colleagues, thank you for tuning in. My name is Mike. May we enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Kenya's future is taking shape. Introducing the 2025-2026 National Budget. A budget built on priorities and focused on what matters most. Empowering agriculture for food security and prosperity. Supercharging digital infrastructure for innovation and opportunity. Building affordable homes, creating jobs and transforming lives. And ensuring quality healthcare for all. So, how much will it all cost? Well, a proposed budget of 4.2 trillion is on the table. Get the full picture, understand the numbers, and see the impact. The 2025-2026 budget on KBC Channel 1.
Greetings in the name of the Most High Jah Rastafari. My good name is Marley Moses, the Positive Warrior, alongside...
Yes, sir, DJ D-Rage, the baddest. Each and every Wednesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 TV.
Tunakuletea the biggest reggae party in 254 in a yard extra. Extra niceness of reggae music.
Extra dose of entertainment.
When the thing is nice, we
have to do it twice.
Did you
you know that as a pension scheme member, you have several rights that protect your savings and ensure your future is secure? First, once you exit your scheme, the law provides that you receive payment within 30 days, and you can transfer your benefits from one scheme to another within 60 days. You have options on exit to take cash, defer, or transfer your benefits. You also have the right to access and interrogate scheme documentation, attend annual general meetings, receive annual benefit statements, and nominate beneficiaries. Further, your pension savings are safeguarded by law, so scheme funds cannot be used to settle loans. Member benefits are protected from execution or attachment, even in cases of bankruptcy or death. The Retirement Benefits Authority plays a crucial role in managing your scheme. We supervise continuously, receiving quarterly and annual submissions from trustees and service providers. Your pension is in safe hands. Know your rights and trust Retirement Benefits Authority to keep your future secure. For more information, visit our website www.rba.go.ke, call our toll-free line on 0800 720 300 or email info@rba.go.ke. Secure your future, secure your peace of mind. RBA, safeguarding your retirement benefits.
What you are seeing currently on your screens, that is the Senate chambers, last preparations by the clerks, of course, and the staff of the Senate to ensure that everything will be running smoothly as the senators prepare to take their positions this morning for the business that is lined up for consideration this morning. Now, you will recall that on the Tuesday afternoon sitting, the Speaker issued a directive with regards to an invitation that has been extended to the Cabinet Secretary, either county, inter-county, national, regional, or even international concerns.